So hiring managers aren't looking for a resume with certifications. They're really looking for like one thing, and a lot of people are not showing it to hiring managers, and that's really why they're not getting hired in the tech space, specifically the cloud space. And this video is going to cover exactly what I think someone should do if they ever met me and asked me, what do I think you should do to get into the cloud space? Now, this is going to be relatively lengthy, but this is going to be my exact breakdown for everyone thinking about getting into the cloud space, right? So, as I get into that, I just want to give you a preface on like who I am and what perspective this kind of video comes from, right? So, my name is Jante Charles. I'm a cloud engineer, senior cloud engineer. I've worked for a lot of different businesses from like Fortune 500 and below, Fortune 500 and up, consulting firms, telecommunications, big name companies, as well as like no name companies as well too. But my particular skill set is a multi-cloud engineer, and for the most part, I've held a lot of different job titles. Like it's been cloud engineer, platform engineer, DevSecOps engineer, DevOps engineer, and for the majority of my career, it's really just been individual contributor. I'm not a manager. I've never managed people. That's not really something that I really want to do. But I want to give you that preface so you really understand the frame that I'm giving you this information from. This roadmap that I'm going to cover is exactly what I use to continuously get a pipeline of opportunities in today's job market. I have a lot in terms of opinions on the job hunting process, how it's changed from years ago versus now. Like I've been in this space since like the late 2010s, and a lot has changed in what it really takes to get hired and be competitive and getting hired as well too. And this is going to be the exact process that I use, and also the exact process that I prescribe to anybody who's thinking about getting into the cloud space or getting into the tech space in general. So, I mean, let's get into it, honestly. So first thing I want to touch on is really the job market. Like you'll hear a lot of people say on social media from various levels, they'll go, oh, the job market is bad, or the job market is cooked, or it's just so hard to get a job right now. And quite honestly, like I don't really think that. I think the job market is always in a state of we need to hire people with a particular skill set and we can't find them. And I think that's always been the truth for the tech space, and that'll always be the truth for the tech space because things develop very quickly in the space. There's always new tools to learn. There's always a shift in the market, and there's always a lack of people with the skills that businesses need to get hired. So I want to challenge people that are consuming this video to get out of that mindset of the job market is bad. I always say whenever someone tells you, oh, the job market is bad, it's like the equivalent of them saying there's no good women out there. It's not that there isn't any good women out there. It's that you may not be as competitive as you think for the person that you're seeking to attract, right? There's opportunities out there. There's always opportunities in the tech space. But I think the main reason that people think that it's a tough market all the time is because they're not as competitive as they think, and they don't position themselves properly to be as competitive as they really need to be in today's modern market to get the roles that they're looking for. And it means that, well, if that's your truth, it really means that you have to improve the strategy or methodology that you're using to get hired. Because I promise you, it's not the same as years ago where you could just get a certification and put in an application and get hired. It takes considerably more. And we're going to break down the exact strategy that I use to get opportunities for myself. Like this strategy, with this strategy and me continuing to do this strategy, like I don't ever think I'll ever not have a job. Like personally, I genuinely don't believe that. But let's continue. All right. So this is going to be the exact process that I use to get jobs in the cloud space, and exactly what I would tell someone to do if they ask me where to start, or like why to start, or how to start. Right. So let's continue. So let's talk about the conventional routes that you could take to get into tech, because there's no wrong way to get into tech. I don't ever really think there's like a bad roadmap to get into tech, but I do think that there are, let's say, suboptimal paths and optimal paths based on where you are. And my head might be covering this, so I'm gonna just move up a little bit, right? So here's like the main three routes that I see people consider when they're thinking about getting into the tech space or getting into a different role in the tech space. So the first one, and this is the one that like everybody always hears about, it's like Should I go to school? Should I get a degree for the type of role that I want to get into? So let's take an example of cybersecurity, because that's super popular. It's been way more popular in these last several years. But let's take the school example, right? Somebody would go, oh, well, I want to get into a cybersecurity role. So does it make sense for me to invest in a 4-year degree or maybe even like a master's degree for me to get into the space? The pro with taking this route is that you get a formal document from some university. It could be a brand name university. It could be a very popular, prestigious university. And now you can say, hey, I have a formal piece of documentation that says I should be able to work in this field. The con with that is it doesn't really work like that in practice, right? If you started from zero and you went to go get a cybersecurity degree, and this is just an example, you would get that formal document, but what you would be learning from the institution would be outdated information, and it wouldn't necessarily make you competitive. Like, you would go through the curriculum, you would get the credit hours, you would potentially be around other people who are on the same journey, but you wouldn't finish with a piece of paper that really gave you experience in the space or relevant experience in the space, right? So just because you got a 4-year degree, that doesn't mean that you actually know how to do anything relevant to the market. Like, I know people who have 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, 6-year degrees, whatever, and they don't know how to do basic troubleshooting. They don't know how to even do like a password reset or something like that. School can be good as like an additional buffer to real hands-on skills that you have, but I don't necessarily think it's the best starting point. Like, you have universities like Western Governors University that has a lot of, let's say, decent degrees that can help you get started in the space. But I think the vast majority, I'm going to say like 95% of formal education that you can get out there is not really going to be substantial for you to be competitive in this space. I have like videos covering the particular university, Western Governors University, on and what I think about it, why I think the way that I think about it. But I don't think that this is the best first decision for someone. I think this is something that you would do after you've got some hands-on experience under your belt and you know the type of role you're targeting and you really understand how that formal piece of paper or education can help with, let's say, icing on the cake once you have the hands-on skills. Like, and in terms of like school or formal education, like there's a lot of boot camps out there as well too that can teach you relevant or valuable information for the space. Like, there's Linux boot camps, there's cybersecurity boot camps, there's SOC analyst boot camps. Hell, there's even cloud engineering boot camps, right? Like, I think boot camps can be helpful if you are somebody who needs hand-holding, step-by-step guidance on every single piece of the technical details of the role that you're looking for and you want a specific role in the space. But I think a lot of people invest in boot camps and they fall into like a few categories. Either they're like the person who absorbs the technical content really well, but they fail to get a job because they don't understand how to look for a job, because boot camps don't necessarily guarantee that you'll get a job, place you at a job, or make sure that you understand how to look for a job. Like, a lot of boot camps, in my opinion, are like 50% of the equation of job hunting in the space. They teach you the technical skills, but they don't teach you the actual process or a proven methodology or process to hunt for a job. So I think boot camps are for specific people who are driven and who have like additional mentorship alongside developing the technical skills to get hired, right? So this is one of the buckets that I see a lot of people drift into or consider as like their starting point. It can work, but your mileage may vary depending on the university you go to, the quality of their program, and the boot camp that you invest in. Like, is that boot camp literally going to say, I can teach you the technical skills and teach you the job hunting skills, right? Your mileage may vary with that bucket. Second route that I usually see people consider when they're trying to get into the space is certifications, right? Certifications, in my opinion, are objectively better than university. Because certifications, I think, are more modern. They can teach you modern competitive skills for the space. And depending on the certifications that you get, you literally can learn how to do a job from a certification, right? But the caveat with certifications is that there's a lot of them. Like, if you're not familiar with like how many certifications are in the tech space, go look up Paul Jeremy's cybersecurity certification map. It's going to have like several different columns, several different tiers for the different kinds of certifications, from like entry level, associate level, professional level, et cetera, et cetera. And you could really see like the scope of how many certifications there are out there. And it could be exceedingly overwhelming for someone who's just starting in the space. Like when I tell you there's so many different certifications for so many subsets of the space, that if I showed it to someone that it was a beginner, like 95% of people would immediately get overwhelmed and be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, right? But with the certifications bucket, they are much more valuable than like a formal education route, in my opinion, because like I said, you can learn good fundamentals and you can literally learn how to do a job from a particular grouping of certifications. But unless you have like the right advisement, study material, and mindset as you're going through the certification content, it could either be something that's going to build you a solid foundation or something that just hinders you entirely because you're so fixated on just getting these certifications because you think every certification is going to be valuable to your journey, right? In a similar way, like to a formal degree, I would consider certifications icing on the cake, because not every certification is created equal. Not every certification is going to give you hands-on skills, and like your mileage may vary depending on the type of role that you're targeting, right? Like if I said I want to be a network engineer, there's a certain subset of certifications that'll be valuable to me for that type of pursuit. If you say, hey, I want to do IT support, or hey, I want to do a SOC analyst, there's going to be a certain subset of those certifications that are truly valuable to you. And if you pick the wrong one, not only are you investing money into the certification, but you're also investing time. So if you choose wrong, you may not get the, let's say, the juice from the squeeze. You might pick a fruit that just isn't even relevant for what you're trying to do. So unless you have like proper guidance there, you could choose wrong and waste your time and money. But objectively, I think that's still better than university, because you're going to get relevant modern content with the certifications out there. Now, the third bucket I usually see people consider as well too is self-study. Like consuming tons of free courses, labs, projects, etc. Like this bucket, I think, is for a very, very, very special person. Someone who has like a high level of pain in their life that they really have to hunker down and put their head down and focus on. Everybody isn't in that bucket either. Like some of the people that I see who are like huge advocates for self-study are like people who are just obsessed with IT, or obsessed with that subset of IT that they really want to get into. And a lot of people aren't like that. Like a lot of people want to get into the space because of the stability, the income, the prestige even. And there aren't that many people that really have a true passion to sit down in their room for hours with a hoodie on and just learn things back to back to back every day for hours. The self-study route can work for those people. And I think the issue with solely investing in that bucket is that you can hyperfixate on having the technical skills, but completely forget that you need to have also job hunting skills and social skills to go along with that, because that's a big piece of the space. People think that because you're technical or you know how to work with this particular specific tool, that can make you really, really competitive in the market. And that's like a piece of the formula. But I think people should do a mixture of all three of these things, depending on where they are in their life, their risk appetite, meaning like how much risk and time and money they can put up in pursuit of this journey. And it's not going to be you solely investing in one of these three buckets for you to get to the end goal. You want to pick two or maybe even three of these buckets at one time for you to have like the highest possible chance of being a hyper competitive candidate in the market. Like for most people, I think you should start with certifications, but even before starting with certifications, you need to pinpoint the role that you're looking for specifically, identify the skills and tools associated with the job that you're pursuing for one, figure out what certifications align with that, and you need to do the self-study and projects to build those skills, and then pursue the certifications. And once you have a mixture of the actual hands-on, like, hey, I know how to do this particular job, then you pursue the certifications. And then once you have hands-on experience, cash flow, then you may consider university. But that's the roadmap that I would usually tell someone. Like if it's just an average person, generalized, maybe that I think that bucket would be, that combination of those two buckets would work. But I wouldn't hyperfixate on one particular bucket here. It's a combination of at least two, maybe three of these things for you to have success getting into the tech space and or the cloud space, right? Now, a super hyper competitive candidate is going to have all three. Like an ideal candidate is somebody who has the market certifications that businesses want you to hold, that puts you in the type of compliance that that particular vertical of business wants and needs. Someone who has done the personal work and self-study to be able to display those skills that businesses want that can solve their problems. And then also someone who has formal education. This person who I'm talking about is usually a unicorn. Like a lot of people like that don't exist. Like, I think the vast majority of people in the tech space, regardless of what role they're in, are someone who has hands-on skills and some certifications and a degree that doesn't have any relevance in the space. Like, you're not going to always meet cybersecurity professionals with a cybersecurity bachelor's and master's. That's just not common. Not as common as people think, let alone people with a master's and a security clearance on top of that. Those people aren't as common as we really think. They're not. They're definitely not. Right? So these are the main routes that I see people consider, and these are my thoughts on all three of these buckets. Because depending on who you are or the time you're watching this video, you may have slight investment in 1, 2, or 3 of these buckets, but there is no right or wrong one to choose. But if you really want to be hyper competitive, you have all three. But at the very least, I think you should invest in 2 of these buckets so that you can put yourself in a good position to look for the role that you're looking for, right? Now, what exactly is the foundation that someone would need to start getting into a cloud role, right? I think the first thing you should do is just pick one cloud platform. Like, there's some people who go, oh, well, I'm gonna start with Azure, and then I'm gonna learn AWS, and then I'm gonna learn GCP, and then da 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 da. I don't think that's ideal. I think you need to pick one cloud platform that you're gonna build consistency, breadth, and depth in, and then over your career, you'll eventually learn other platforms and branch out and build your skills from there. I don't think investing heavily in all 3 platforms at one point at the start of your career is good. I think it just makes you waste money and time. So I always advise people stick with one cloud platform. And even still, like in you picking that cloud platform, you're not just investing in only platform-based knowledge. You still need to develop your fundamentals. And we're going to talk about that as well too. But the focus of this is zero to cloud engineer. So of course I'm going to start with cloud platform. That's a question that I get all the time. Should I learn Azure? Should I learn GCP? Should I learn AWS? What do you think? Right? So here is what I think based on my experience in the market. Like, to be clear, like I've worked in all 3 of these cloud platforms at one time, as well as like specifically. But here are my thoughts on each cloud platform based on like my several years in this space, right? So to me, I think Azure is like the best cloud platform to pick in general. Like if you had no experience in the cloud space, I would tell somebody to pick Azure, right? And here's the reasons why. I would tell someone to pick Azure because the vast majority of businesses use Microsoft. They use Microsoft tools. Like if a business is already heavily invested in Microsoft for their Office 365, their suite of like communication tools and so on and so forth, chances are they're going to leverage that relationship in the direction of cloud as well too. They're going to go, oh, well, we already have a relationship with Microsoft. We might as well use the Microsoft Cloud Platform. And I think that's something to deeply consider as well, right? And also in learning the platform in comparison to AWS and GCP, the services are a bit more intuitive in terms of the naming conventions as well. Like we're talking about cloud, so we're talking about virtualization. If you said, hey, I want to, like, if I said, hey, the service for machines, like the base compute service for machines on Azure is an Azure Cloud Virtual Machine, that would click with you. Like, oh, okay, a virtual machine on this cloud platform is labeled Azure Virtual Machine. In comparison to like AWS and GCP, the naming conventions of things aren't as intuitive, and they may take a little longer for you to understand, like, well, not understand, but map the dictionary terms of the services. And I think that's a big deal for someone that's just starting out. Like for AWS, the virtual machine service is EC2. For GCP, it's compute engine. In the same way that these services have specific names on the platform, every other service on that platform has specific names as well. And I think it could be daunting to some people to memorize those names, especially if they're not user intuitive. Like for instance, like a load balancer on Azure is called an Azure load balancer. Storage on Azure is called Azure Blob Storage. Like for AWS, it's S3. If I asked you to guess what S3 was, you'd be like, what the hell is S3? Right? I mean, these are small things, but I think these small things really matter for someone that's starting from zero or starting from scratch in the space. I think that Azure is just the best and safest pick for anybody. And then a lot of mature businesses, like businesses that have been around, like in existence for a long time, once again, they have a heavy investment in Microsoft. So naturally, they probably have an Azure footprint already. So you're probably going to have a better chance at working at a mature enterprise with Azure as your main cloud platform. Now, that doesn't mean the other two are bad, right? Like AWS, for all intents and purposes, the fact is they hold the majority of the market share in terms of the cloud space, right? So the big three in the cloud space is Azure, AWS, and GCP. AWS holds the most of the market share, meaning the vast majority of businesses that you'll find have some type of AWS footprint. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be mature businesses. Like from my perspective in the market over these several years, I think the type of businesses that you'll find using AWS are far and few between. Like, I know you've seen or heard that Netflix uses AWS to host everything. That's Netflix. That's like a FANG company. That's like a top tier company. But in the same way that you have top tier companies using AWS, everything you could find a business from Fortune 5 to Fortune 500 to Fortune 1500 that use AWS. Like the breadth of businesses using AWS, I think, is bigger, and it can be a mixed bag. And I think that is something to consider. Like you might end up working with a startup who just grabbed AWS and they want to use it. Chances are, if you find a business using Azure, they're probably a more mature business that has a more mature on-premise infrastructure before they chose to invest in Microsoft Azure. Right? So I would keep that in consideration as well. And like for GCP, it's I'm not going to say it's the dark horse out of the three, but it's considerably the least popular. GCP is the least mature out of these three cloud service providers, but it's a skill set that's still in very high demand in the cloud space, I think. I think that companies are struggling to find GCP because a lot of people don't learn it. Like in the last quarter of me like updating or uploading this video, there's been a lot of businesses reaching out to me because I have a GCP skill set, particularly in the federal space as well too. But I mean, there's nuances associated with all of these. Like in my opinion, GCP is the most buggiest. AWS is the most mature, but they're the second most buggiest. Well, they're less buggy than GCP, but I think they have more bugs than Azure. And like there's also nuances with studying the material associated with learning the skill set as well too. GCP is the least mature, meaning it's been around the shortest. So the materials that you're going to find to study that cloud service provider are going to be relatively limited in comparison to AWS and Azure, right? Azure and AWS are going to have more mature study resources because their certifications have been around longer, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's going to be easier to study the other two than GCP. But I don't want to dissuade someone from learning GCP because of that. But if we look at it in the perspective of there not being enough people with the GCP skill set, if you're a GCP specialist, you're going to have a certain kind of demand from the market that you're not going to find with AWS and Azure. Because of how uncommon the skill set is in the cloud space, you're going to have opportunities at different businesses at a different, let's say, velocity, right? But in my opinion, if somebody was like, hey, what cloud platform should I learn? I would tell them Azure. And also, I may be a bit biased. I've worked with Azure the longest, so naturally, I'm going to be a little bit more biased and say, hey, I think Azure's the best. There is no best cloud platform. There's different solutions that these platforms may be better at than the other, but I'd never just say, oh, like X platform is the best. Like GCP, everybody knows it's really, really good for data. AWS, everybody knows it's really, really good for Linux. Azure, everybody knows since it's heavily integrated with Microsoft, it's going to serve you best if you're in a Microsoft environment. But that doesn't mean each of these platforms can't do something that the other one can't. But if you're looking for like a stable company that probably is a bit more mature in their IT infrastructure in general, chances are it's probably going to be a business that uses Azure. That doesn't mean they're mature on the cloud side, but that means that they're probably more mature from a business, from an IT and infrastructure perspective. And once again, this is just based on my time in the space and what I see in the market, because I regularly test and look at what's in the market. But does it really matter what you pick if you're just starting in the space? No. You just need to commit to whichever one you choose and go deep, because like I said, depth in one platform is going to be exceedingly more valuable than having breadth across all three platforms, especially at the start of your cloud journey, right? Now, moving on here, right? Now, along with picking a cloud platform that you know you want to target and get into a cloud engineering role with, you need to build out your fundamentals along with that. Like, if somebody just was getting started in the space and they're like, okay, well, what should I learn first? I think you need to learn your fundamentals, like your IT fundamentals. And the way that you would learn those things is to categorize your fundamentals into three buckets: compute, network, and storage. I would want someone to have a strong understanding of those three concepts, agnostic of what cloud platform you choose. Like from an IT perspective, from, hey, I want to work in IT, compute, network, and storage is something that I think you should understand deeply before you really start to heavily invest in developing that cloud skill set. And to me, like, you could do this for free. You don't need to invest in a boot camp or invest in a course or something like that so you can start to build out your fundamentals on your own. Like, I have a YouTube video talking about what I would do if you had $0, zero experience in the space. YouTube is going to be your best friend, especially for, once again, these fundamentals, these core fundamentals. Security Plus, I think, is the best objective first certification anybody should get, regardless of what sector of the IT space that they're going to get into. And you can learn all the content from Security Plus without paying for the certification for free, right? You can study all the content for free via Professor Messer. If you don't know who Professor Messer is, pause this video, go look them up on another tab. But they have a free end-to-end course or study material on Security Plus. It'll give you that established set of fundamental concepts, vocabulary of compute, network, storage, and also cybersecurity or security fundamentals, because that's going to be your baseline for you stacking all of this cloud knowledge on top of everything. And also, like, the reason why I said choose your cloud platform first is because, like, this is a zero to cloud engineer like roadmap, right? So naturally, okay, cool. Let's say you go the Azure route. You know you want to learn Azure. Great. Time to start learning those fundamentals so that you can start building them up as you start to pursue your cloud skill set and certifications later on. But what I would tell somebody to do to get started first, get your Security Plus knowledge, not necessarily the certification, for free. Now, some people are students. Some people have, disposable income or investment set aside or investment money set aside, etc. Like, I think you should learn the content and gain some hands-on experience before really sitting for the certification exam and paying for it. So go through that free YouTube course, understand the content, start to get some hands-on with some projects, and then knock out the certification once you actually have built something, once you put hands on keyboard. Don't just go study the certification and then just get it because the course content was free, right? But along with that, if you're in college or so on and so forth, you can probably get your university to pay for the certification. Like when I was in university, we did have a program where they would give you a certification voucher to take the certification that's in alignment with your major. I did computer science, so for my university, they were like, okay, cool, we can give you a voucher. I think a lot more universities do that than people think. And then for some states, I know they have like organizations within your state that'll give you a certification voucher or take care of your certification for you. I've heard that as well too. Things like that. Those exist, but you have to look for them, and they're not something that everybody talks about, let alone something that everyone knows about. I didn't even know about that till like this year, right? And along with pursuing that fundamental batch of knowledge, you also want to find a mentor, right? And like a mentor and a coach are two different things. I think people conflate the two. Like a mentor is someone that you find organically that is invested in you being successful in your pursuit of knowledge as it relates to your relationship with them and in general. Like find someone who is genuinely interested in you as an individual and your progression as an individual that actively is working in a cloud role that you can call on the phone, right? Like I've had mentors, they weren't necessarily in the cloud space, but they were actively and genuinely invested in my progression as an individual. They wanted to see me succeed because one, they liked me. Two, they saw my eagerness and willing to learn. And those are the main two things that I think comes with finding a mentor. And also the third thing is, putting yourself in the same room as that person. You can't find a mentor unless you are in close proximity to them. I mean, sometimes you can find a mentor online or whatever, but I think it really helps when you have that personal connection, that real life connection with that person. And I think that should be a starting point for a lot of people's journey as well. And mentorship and coaching are two different things, right? A mentor is someone that you organically meet, that you organically develop a relationship with, that has a vested interest in your improvement as an individual in the sector of your life that you want to improve. That's organic. They're not going to charge you. They're going to be actively helping you as much as they can to help you improve as an individual. A coach is someone who you seek out with a specific skill set to solve your specific problem because you want results. They're not necessarily your friend. Like they're incentivized by potentially an investment of some kind. But I want to make sure I make sure that you understand that I think that those two things are different. Mentor, coaches, two different things, but it's going to be considerably more difficult to find a mentor than it is to find a coach for anything. Because having that genuine relationship is going to be considerably more difficult to find, but I promise it's going to be worth it. And I advise everyone to do that. Make yourself uncomfortable. Sometimes you got to even invest to be in the room to find that organic mentorship relationship, right? Do that if you have to, but it's going to pay dividends in your future when you have someone you could just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I'm having this problem. What do you think? Some people may not have to invest heavily to find that person, but I think you should mentally carve out a space in your mind to say, hey, I got to find this person that is genuinely invested in me improving as an individual, right? So that's also something I would do alongside you building out those fundamentals with Security Plus. Now, as I said before, you do want to master the concepts and also potentially some of the hands-on associated with the compute, network, and storage, right? Now, once you have those fundamentals that you get from Security Plus and building hands-on labs, and when I say Security Plus, I mean the knowledge from Security Plus, you want to start building out labs to build out the understanding of compute, network, and storage. And also, I did note up here, like Security Plus is a 4-week exam. Like when I meet people who are like, oh, well, I've been studying Security Plus for months, I don't buy it when people say that. Like Security Plus is an entry-level certification. If you pause this video and go look up the Paul Jeremy cybersecurity or certification roadmap, Security Plus is literally at the bottom because it's an entry-level certification. Like it shouldn't take more than 4 weeks of focused study, 1 to 2 hours a day with these free resources and a practice exam for you to be able to pass Security Plus. Like if you're gonna study the course material to get the knowledge, do that. But if you're going to study the course material to test out and pass the exam, commit to it. Like make sure you get it done, especially if the investment is going to come out of your pocket. But don't sit there and wait and spend all this time trying to get Security Plus. No, it's a 4-week certification. I mean, for me, I think people are serious, like really serious about getting into the space when they finish Security Plus and they just knock it out. Like, all right, boom, it's done. What can I do next? But it's a 4-week certification. It shouldn't take super duper long to pass. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. and it's not going to be something that should bog down your life. 1 to 2 hours of study a day, you finish it in 4 weeks. Do not let it be a constant excuse of, oh, I don't have my Security Plus, or just figure out if you're just studying it for the knowledge or if you're studying it for the knowledge and the certification, and do not play and wait and delineate on it, right? But I'm glad I didn't like gloss over that too much. Now, once you have those fundamentals and you really are like, cool, I want to start actually building out cloud skills that I could display. Like, one thing about the cloud space in comparison to other spaces in IT is that a lot of the skills that are valuable to a business, you can learn for free. Like, a lot of people don't know that you can just go and get access to a cloud platform and get access to the exact same enterprise tools that businesses use in the modern day for free. Azure, AWS, and GCP. If you go and just type in on Google, Azure free account, AWS free account, GCP free account, hell, even like Oracle free account or something, you can go and get an account with that cloud service provider, and they'll give you $200 or $300 in credits just so you could learn to use services on the platform, right? You want to grab the free access to the platforms, and then you want to combine free access to the platform with the knowledge that you get from Security Plus, so you can start building projects, home labs, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use project and home lab interchangeably in this video, but they mean the same thing. But you want to grab the free account and the knowledge you get from Security Plus and start putting hands on keyboard and building some of these skills, some of these service and tool understandings, so you can start building your cloud knowledge, right? Now, there's like a breadth of cloud knowledge in the space. There's like a lot of things you can learn from cloud, a lot. Like, I never call myself a master of the cloud space. I always have the methodology that the master is the eternal student, because there's always something new changing with a cloud service provider or service or offering or whatever. You're never going to know all of it, but you need to start putting hands on keyboard at this point, right? Because once you have that knowledge and you have the free account, there's no excuse or reason why you shouldn't be building something. You want to get into this space, guess what? You have to build knowledge and experience with the knowledge that you're building. Right now, these are some projects that I think people should build that I think would give them a relatively well-rounded portfolio, among other things. But there's some other things that I think you should be learning for the cloud space specifically that I think would also make you a really competitive candidate. And one of those things is understanding infrastructure as code, along with your fundamental understanding of compute, network, and storage from an IT perspective and from a cloud platform perspective, right? A competitive cloud engineer isn't one that clicks things like doing click ops, like manually provisioning services from compute, network, and storage is not competitive as a cloud engineer. Like, if someone understands the ins and outs, the operations, and the processes behind manually doing things on the platform, like, that's good. That is objectively good because you know how to do those things. But doing them manually is not competitive. So at a bare minimum, for someone to be on the path to be competitive as a cloud engineer, I think you need to understand infrastructure as code, which is a tool that you use to automate provisioning of resources on a cloud platform, and pipelines. Like, what are pipelines? They let you run a series of automated tasks or commands so that you're not manually executing the automated processes to provision the infrastructure. That might be a mouthful, but this video isn't designed to be like technical. It's designed to give you a methodology and a roadmap for what I think you should be doing to get into the cloud space if you're investing in actually developing the skill set. This video is not designed to be super technical, right? But for cloud, once you have those fundamentals, I think you should learn how to automate the provisioning of compute, network, and storage with infrastructure as code, potentially configuration as code, and a pipelining solution as well, right? Now, once you have those skills, what should you be building? And this is where the project section comes in, or the projects at least that I think everybody should be doing, right? These projects are just based on my experience in this space and what I think would immediately show that you can add value to a business with the knowledge that you do have that you've learned, right? One of the main things, one thing that's valuable to every single business ever is spend. Cost. How much is this costing? Because like when you think about the cloud, like businesses are going from hosting things on premise to hosting things in the cloud, from having full control over all of their infrastructure to abstracting that away and trusting a cloud service provider to host it for them. And along with that trust is the trust that it's not going to cost them $1 million, right? So what I think would be a phenomenal project is a cost visibility dashboard. Being able to actually look into an environment and say, okay, I know exactly what my investment or spend will be on this platform today, tomorrow, in 30 days, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to know exactly what's changing if it goes out of control. That's like one of the first objectively valuable projects that I think everybody should have in their portfolio when it comes to being a cloud engineer. Second thing is automated backups. Like, data is a big thing. And this is also pointing back to why I think compute, network, and storage are the fundamentals you should start with in general, because backups are a big deal. Data is a big deal. Even though a business may not necessarily be migrating their workload, their compute into the cloud, they're going to have some type of data that they either want to migrate over or host in the cloud. And you want to understand how you can automate that process, because cloud engineers that are competitive can automate damn near everything. All right, so I think an automated backup system is a good second project to have, because it's still going to emulate a same process that's being done on premise. All right, there's automated backups on premise as well too. If you can learn how to do that in the cloud, immediate value, right? And of course, like, these blocks, they all show like the specific tools, specific to Azure, that you would use to build out a project as such. And of course, like, I have a longer form YouTube video covering that as well too. I could show that to you later. But also, monitoring is a big deal, right? When we think about like a workload, a website, a web server, like something simple like that, you want to know that, hey, if this lives in the cloud, I know that it's working. And I know that whenever there's a problem, I know immediately. Once again, immediate value. If you can show a business, hey, not only can I help you stand up the resources needed to host this workload for this, let's say, critical application, I can give you insight to when something goes wrong with it immediately. This is an immediate value add in terms of hands-on, in my opinion. If someone could come in and say, oh, I know how to migrate this application, I know the exact services to do so, and I know how to monitor it for you, immediate value. Right. The customer inquiry manager and inventory tracker are a little bit, you kind of have to think about these as to why they would be valuable to a business. These are a little bit more, I'd call them abstract, but it shows that you can think about solving a specific business problem. And for these two use cases, it's like a business is growing, they have urgent requests, and they want to understand when they have these urgent requests, the moment that it happens. Right. I do also want to touch on like how you can come up with some of these specific projects to show value. Like, go on like Upstart or like Fiverr or something and find a random business that's hiring for a particular role. Like, the listings that they have on that website will give you some insight into the type of person that they want to solve the problem that they have, and understand the problem that they're solving for. And then think about how you as an individual, with the skills that you've developed, the foundations that you've developed, the cloud platform knowledge you've developed, how you can leverage that skill set to solve the problem that they're posting about. This is where I came up with these two problems that I think would be interesting to solve, to show that you can critically think through how you want to solve a problem for a business. Because ultimately, you doing the projects are you being able to show companies and businesses that, hey, I can solve your problem with my cloud skill set and my understanding of fundamentals with the platform and fundamentals from an IT perspective, right? So these two are also good projects I think you could add to your portfolio. But the main three, the visibility dashboard, automated backups, and monitoring, I think everybody should have those. And everything on this list, these 5 projects, I think are things that you should be able to do, understand how to build manually, and understand how to do it in an automated fashion with infrastructure as code, potentially configuration as code, and then also with a pipeline solution. If you can have an end-to-end automated guide for that, someone's going to pay you for sure. Right now, these projects aren't hello world projects. Like, there's something out there that's like, what's it called? the Azure, I forgot what it's called. It's been around for quite a long time, but it's a series of projects that are supposed to show that you understand the core Azure services. It's the Cloud Resume Challenge, right? Those projects are not bad to do. You might have heard of it if you're thinking about doing projects in the cloud. You could do them on Azure, GCP, AWS. It doesn't really matter, but even open it up in another tab. You could find it. They're pretty old. They've been around in the space for a really long time, but those projects are more pre-written for you. They're pre-put together solutions that can show that you understand the services associated with the platform. But my issue with doing those pre-built projects is that they don't put you in a position where you have to craft a solution yourself. The projects that you build or come up with from scratch are going to be the most valuable to you because, one, you had to think to build the architecture and the solution. And then it also shows your ability to problem solve with a tool bag. Because in the real world, they're not going to say, hey, I need you to build a virtual machine with a load balancer in front of it, and I need you to host IIS on the virtual machine and da-da-da-da-da. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, hey, we have this problem that this team needs solved. Go out and solve it and tell us why this is the best solution with the tools that you have and the constraints that we have. Like, doing pre-built projects can only get you so far in terms of your ability to problem solve. So if you're doing like the Cloud Resume Challenge, yeah, that's going to be a good foundation, but the projects that you build from scratch are really going to be the most valuable for you. And these 5 projects, I think, will allow you to think about how you can craft your own solutions and how you can really deeply understand this tool bag of services, right? So you want to have a portfolio of projects that you built from scratch if you can help it. But overall, these 5, I think, are the bare minimum or a really, really, really strong minimum to have for any cloud engineer, regardless of what platform that they're working in. And of course, like, you can see the services and tools that it requires to build these. These are Azure focused projects, but if you wanted to mix and match the tools with AWS or GCP or whatever, like, any large language model could tell you the equivalent based on that platform, right? Now, one thing I do want to know is that you want to lead with like the business outcomes of what these services can provide in terms of a solution. You're not going to convey yourself in the best light to an employer if you're just saying, oh, I know how to use this service and this service and this service. You need to convey to them, you know, if you get to that interview stage, the value you can add with the tool set that you have. The services are supporting details. And I have that written down because, like, literally the services are supporting details for what you can build. Because you can build a variety of different solutions a million ways with a different tool set. Like, if we took these 5 projects and we just said, hey, change the tools to AWS, change the tools to GCP, the toolkit is going to be slightly different, but it's the same business outcome. So you want to have that type of mindset as well too as you're building these projects, because some of your projects are really going to be custom built by you for the solution that you came up to solve, right? You go on Fiverr or whatever, Upwork or whatever, not every person is going to have the exact same solution for a problem. Some may be more efficient, some may not be more efficient. Sometimes in the real world, you have to use inefficient solutions to problems because of the way the business or the constraints are stacked against you. Right? So you want to really build projects that you can think through and reason as to why you're building them the way that you're building them. Now, once you've like built out this portfolio, you have a strong understanding of how to craft your solutions, how to work with the services, how to automate everything from end to end. You want to reverse engineer finding the role that you're looking for. Because like cloud engineer is like a broad title in a way. Like, there's certain services that you would absolutely need to understand from a bare platform perspective for you to get into the space. But even still, there's going to be specific kinds of engineers for different solutions to be solved in the business. Like a cloud engineer, like at bare minimum, someone's expecting you to understand compute, network, storage. They're expecting you to understand how to automate solutions from end to end, how to troubleshoot everything within that, and how to come up with your own solutions. But depending on the type of cloud engineer you want to be, You might be the type of cloud engineer that has a fixation or focus on the automation piece, the infrastructure as code piece. It might be the monitoring piece. It might be the policy and governance piece, right? But this is where reverse engineering the job that you want comes into play. So let's say, for all intents and purposes, just to hammer in this thought, is let's say I want to be a cloud engineer that focuses on the security and the policy or the governance of a cloud environment that I'm working in. I would go out and I would find 5 to 10 different job listings that have a hyperfixation in the job description on the tools associated with that type of day-to-day or tool set. So I said policy, governance, and so on, right? I would go and I would find job listings for an Azure-focused cloud engineering role that have the specific services related to that platform that are related to the governance, the policy, and the compliance of the environment. Based on those tools, based on the description, based on what the business or businesses decide that they want for that type of role, I'm going to leverage an LLM. It could be Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT. I don't know which one is going to be the more popular or strongest one by the time I post this video, but you're going to feed that to an LLM with a persona, right? You're going to tell it, hey, I want you to and personas, for those of you who may not necessarily be like the most AI literate, but you're going to tell the AI to assume that they're someone else. And I even think I have the exact type of persona in here. No, I don't. But let's say I pick up Claude. I'll tell Claude, hey, I want you to assume the persona of a seasoned cloud security professional that focuses on governance and security of the Azure cloud platform. That's an example type of prompt that I would give it to assume that persona. So now it's going to be fixated specifically on Azure, specifically on the policy and governance piece. So I'm going to give it that persona, and then I'm going to tell it to generate labs related to the descriptions, the job descriptions that I'm feeding it, and the specific services that I want to develop so that I can develop those skills and be able to display my development of those skills via projects and home labs, right? And of course, you're going to have to go back and forth with it maybe a few times. Maybe you're going to have to iterate over how you want the persona to respond, the type of responses that you want to get. But you want to use that as a good foundation or sounding board so you can start building out the projects related to the skills you want to develop. And that might take a little bit of work, especially if you're not necessarily the most AI literate. But you want to use a mixture of this reverse engineering process along with your problem-solving mindset so you can build labs that are relevant to the role that you want and have a portfolio that's geared towards the type of cloud engineering role that you want. So that same example that I gave of going to Fiverr or Upwork and looking at the problems that businesses have would be used in conjunction with this persona, with your desire to develop the projects related to the role that you're trying to get into. And then thus your project portfolio or your project builds, your home lab sections would be more geared towards the roles that you're looking for. You're not just going to be building projects just to build projects to say, hey, I built this. You want to have a reason behind it. You want to have a specific problem you want to solve, because if you build a project with meaning behind it, you're going to have a deeper understanding of what you're building because you'll have a why behind it. And it's going to stick a lot deeper than just building the cloud resume challenge. Right? Now, I know I gave 5 example labs and a methodology for how to come up with other labs, but you don't just want to stop at 5, right? If somebody just did these 5 projects, that would, in my opinion, that would be enough to get hired. I've seen people do these 5 projects and gotten hired, gotten interviews, gotten opportunities to display other skills. Those 5 would be the absolute bare minimum for someone to have in their portfolio to display a cloud engineering skill set, to show a problem solving skill set, and get into a role for sure. But it's not supposed to just be, okay, I did these 5 labs, I know how to do these things, that's it. A consequence of being in the tech space, the cloud space, or whatever have you, is that you have to be committed to lifelong learning. So these fundamental projects that you build, they are going to be your floor. And I can guarantee you, anybody that's trying to get into cloud engineering that can do those things is going to have a really, really, really strong baseline in comparison to other people who are just like doing certifications. I haven't even mentioned a certification yet in this video because I really, really want you to like get in your head that projects that you built from scratch with a specific problem to solve that you identified are going to be exceedingly more valuable than you getting a certification. What I mentioned, Security Plus, that's optional. But the point that I'm making, I haven't mentioned one cloud certification yet, right? Those 5 or those baseline projects are going to be your floor. You should consistently be finding other cloud engineering job descriptions or roles or things that interest you that you want to build and add to your portfolio, because it's only going to make you more competitive in the grand scheme of things. Even if, like the example I used was like a governance and security focused type of cloud engineer, even if that's not the ultimate goal for you, just having those in your portfolio shows that you understand those concepts at a deeper level than someone who just has a certification and has like the cloud ready resume challenge or something, right? But you want to keep growing that portfolio, keep growing that skill set. Sometimes you might just go back and do labs and make them better for the sake of just like refreshing your skill set, right? But the bigger that portfolio is, the more proof you'll have, the more you'll be able to talk about different solutions in an interview, and the stronger it'll make you later down the line. And we'll touch on interviews as we go, right? Now, once you do the projects, you need to document them and turn them into content. And content, the word content, even in this video, might scare people. But I mean, like you're watching a long video from someone who makes content. So it may seem like, oh, what does he mean content? Like, what is he talking about? I'm trying to get into tech, not make content. But you're going to see how that plays a giant role in you getting hired, right? So for every project that you do, you don't want to just do them and just stick them in like a website or GitHub or something. And we'll talk about documentation as well too as we move forward. But for every project that you do, you need to break that into content for LinkedIn, right? Like a lot of people sleep on LinkedIn as a job hunting board, right? A lot of people say, oh, well, I don't use LinkedIn because it just doesn't work for me, or blah, 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 blah. We'll get to like the job hunting section of this process, but you should have a LinkedIn. In 2026 or whatever year you're watching this video in, you should have a LinkedIn, and it's going to be exceedingly more relevant as time moves on and AI develops. And I will touch on that as we move forward as well too. But for every project that you do, you need to document it immediately while it's still fresh in your mind and you understand what you just built. Don't just do 7 projects and then be like, oh, I'm gonna go back and document them later. No, because you need it when the knowledge is freshest, at the point where you can explain every single piece of it to someone if they ask you about it. But every single project you do should be documented with this process. You should have a Loom video. If you don't know what Loom is, you could go grab it for free right now. Just type in loom.com or something, sign up for a free account. But it allows you to record videos of yourself, similar to like what I'm doing now, but it allows you to screen record, cut, have a video of you on the screen, so you can give someone a demo of a project that you did with this tool. Very easy to learn, very easy to use. For every project that you do, everything that you build, you're going to document it with Loom at the bare minimum, right? That means that when you build a project, you should have one video of you either building the project from end to end, from nothing to the project exists, or the video will be you talking through the architecture that you've already built. Because some projects are really long, some projects are relatively shorter. Some you could build out in 5 to 10 minutes if you have the right automation set up. Some, even with automation, it takes longer to actually display how it works or why it works a particular way. So the video is either going to be you building the project from end to end, from nothing to I have a project, or is going to be you talking through an already built out architecture and solution, so you can explain every piece of it to someone who's not privy to how it works or why it works a particular way, right? That's the first piece of having good documentation in the space, right? It's different when someone has like a README or a ledger of do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you get the outcome, than somebody giving you like a presentation of, hey, this is what it looks like and why. That's the very first piece I think everybody should have in whatever they're building and documenting. Second thing is a GitHub repo with the code, an architecture diagram, and everything documented from A to Z. This is where the A to Z ledger comes in. Like the methodology that I usually tell people and the methodology that I abide by for my professional documentation as well as like my personal documentation is you want to have verbal and nonverbal documentation. Because like in the real world, like when you build something out for a team or your team or you introduce a new solution to the environment, not only are there going to be expectations for you to document that and have an A to Z roadmap of how to recreate it, but you're also going to have to do knowledge transfer sessions to whoever you're handing it off to. Like you're not just going to build something in a vacuum and then just give it to someone and them figure it out. No, that's dumb. And if you want to be a competitive engineer, you need to understand how to do that efficiently and with process, right? You're going to build out the documentation, the actual written documentation. And really the GitHub really should be the first thing. All the code, the architecture diagrams, the why, the A to Z roadmap of how to build it, actual with hands-on keyboard, and the video walkthrough of either how to build it or the finished architecture, right? Because once again, in the real world, not only are you going to be building things, not only are you going to be documenting things, but someone's going to expect you to do a knowledge transfer session. You're going to hop on a Zoom call, a Teams call, a Slack group or something, and you're going to explain how you built, what you built, and why before you hand it off to someone else for them to replicate, iterate, or use, right? So build out that GitHub repo, have a README, have an architecture diagram, have an A to Z roadmap of how to recreate what you did, and also have that Loom video. That's going to be perfect. Like at that point, once you have those two items, like someone's ability to judge your quality of skill set, quality of communication, and ability to convey complex ideas into simple things is going to be like, oh my God, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, right? And you're going to use these as 2 posts for LinkedIn, right? But we're going to talk about the 4 post structure that I have and why. Right. The third thing that you're going to have as a post that you're going to post on LinkedIn is going to be an architecture diagram. Like if you've already built the project, you've done the GitHub documentation properly, you're already going to have an architecture diagram anyways. So in you just following these first 2, you're already going to have step 3 done without even trying. Right. And the fourth piece, the fourth post that you're going to make to LinkedIn as well is going to be what you would change to make better. Because like things change in the real world. I mean, that goes without saying. In the IT space, things change all the time. All the time. Some things get end of life. Some things get sunset. Sometimes you have to come up with a brand new solution. Things iterate and change over time. So once you build a project, you want to think for a second, okay, I like this solution. It worked. It got me to the end goal, the use case. What could I do to make it better if I had to do it again? What would I change? What would I improve? You're going to find one thing about what you've built and you're going to figure out what you could do to make it better the next time. And that's also going to be a post, right? So you're going to break this project out into at least 4 different posts so you can post on LinkedIn. So if somebody came to your page and they saw cloud engineer, they go through your LinkedIn page and they see that you not only have a documented architecture or project or home lab that you've built from end to end, they can see that you're able to talk through each piece of it and clearly explain in simple terms to anybody how you would build it and why. They're also going to see that this is you that actually built it because they can see your source code. They can see that a human was actually behind the thought process that brought this thing to life. And then they're also going to see that you have foresight as well too. You're not just building or delivering solutions and not thinking about them after they're delivered. So these 4 posts, this type of posting strategy on LinkedIn is very, very, very strong. It's very, very, very strong. This would segregate you from everybody else looking for a role in this space because not only does it validate your humanity, it already validates your skills for one, like actual hands-on skills, and your communication skills and your potentially your business skills as well too, because you're having forethought on how you can make a solution better. right? And the reason that I have 4 posts as the thought process for your projects is because you're gonna post this. You're gonna make one of these posts every other week. So in a 7-day week, every other day you would have a different post related to a project that you did. So let's say you just do the 5 projects above. You come up with the solution and you put it together. You're gonna have 20 different posts that you can make, that you can post every other day for several weeks, right? And you're at that point, you're going to be flooding the cloud space with content related to your skill set, related to your humanity, and related to the value you can add to the space, right? But like, this is how I think you should be leveraging your projects to give yourself validation in the space that you're trying to get into. Because if somebody looks you up, they look up your LinkedIn, they don't see anything related to what you are trying to do for a business or what you say you can do for a business, you don't exist. You don't matter, right? So this is exactly how I would do documentation of projects for the maximum amount of value associated with them. And you could break out another post if you want to, right? Like I think 4 is enough, but an additional 5th post would be great. Like you can't have too much content related to something that you built. You could come up with another spin on this. You could say, well, how would I do this with a different tool set? Or maybe how would I do this with a different set of automation tools? How would I compare this to the exact same tool set on a different cloud platform? You could take another spin on this if you want to, but that would be a good ad just to have more content. But I think at the bare minimum, these 4 are going to be how you would actually document each project. Right? Now, let's say you continue, you do those 5 projects, you add some more projects, you have a backlog of projects, you have a backlog of posts, a backlog of content associated with the skill set you've been developing. Right? Now that you have the skill set, it's time to actually build out your resume. Right? And we're going to talk about the resume piece. Like I said, this isn't like a technical video. It's more like a strategy, a methodology video on getting into the cloud engineering space, right? Like now that you have the skills, potentially you have Security Plus. Like I don't necessarily think you need certifications in the space to get into the space or to be competitive in the space. People care about, well, businesses and hiring managers care about people who can solve problems, not necessarily people with the most credentials or formal education, right? But once you have the skills, the true hands-on skills, the undeniable skills, and the content and documentation behind it, now it's time for you to get ready to start looking for a role. And I always tell people it starts with the resume. Like people hear resume and they have like a variety of different thoughts on resumes, but I think your thought process for resumes should be from the lens of it being your business card or your calling card or your one pager, your marketing document for the problems that you can solve for a business and the true skills that you claim that you have. Every resume isn't going to be created equal. There's a variety of different resume templates out there. There's like different creators, different people have different resumes that work. I'm going to share with you the resume style or the breakdown of resume that I think personally works the best, that I presently use, that everyone who I advise uses. And I'm going to go through that structure and I'm going to explain in great detail why it works the way that it works and why I think you should use this, right? But it only comes after you've built out the skills, not before, after, right? So here, so we'll start top down and we'll go through all the pieces from the top down of the resume and then we'll put it all together and then we'll talk about why each piece works. So at the very top of your resume, I think you should have these things. And also I will add with a resume that, in my opinion, unless you have a decade plus of experience, your resume can and should be one page. Unless you have a decade plus of experience or you're like an astronaut transitioning into the space, like your resume can and should be one page, unless explicitly asked by a recruiter, hey, could you make this longer? Like there's some recruiters, recruiting firms, et cetera, that'll like ask you, hey, could you just make this longer? Or hey, could you just elaborate on all your bullet points even more? Like some of them want you to have longer resumes. It really just depends on the recruiter and the recruiting company or their business process when they're submitting you for opportunities. But I think one page is really all you need max for average people. Now, what should you have first? The first thing is going to be the top of your resume. It's going to be your header identifying who you are. It should have your name, your clearance status, because some people have clearances, some people have public trust. And it should also have your location, phone number, email, LinkedIn, GitHub. And if you're like me and you have like content like YouTube or whatever your blog is, it should be on there. And quite honestly, the very first thing in the top left of that header, in my opinion, should be your clearance status. I'm not like a giant advocate for getting security clearances because the reality of how difficult it is to get them is considerably more difficult than most people really understand. I mean, now I have a public trust. My clearance is adjudicated. So, I mean, I might make an entirely separate video on that process. But for the most part, if you do have a clearance, it should be like the very first thing somebody sees on your resume because of how inherently valuable that is. And then immediately after that should be your name, right? But you should have your location as well too, or it could be either the location that you presently are in, or it could be the location that you're targeting for the roles that you're looking for, right? Because there's some opportunities that are not local to you that you may want, and you may be getting filtered out just because on your resume, it shows that you're living in a different location. Like if I want to get a role in Minnesota, or I'm trying to target a particular company in Minnesota, I'm putting Minnesota on my resume, even though I may not necessarily live there. Similarly with Florida or Ohio or wherever, or whatever country you're targeting that opportunity in, right? Now, along with that, the phone and the email are self-explanatory. One thing I will say about the phone number is generally they want you to have like a legitimate phone line. They don't want you to have like a Google Meets number, not a Google Meets number, but a Google Voice number or something like that, or a text-free number. You want to have like a legitimate phone number because some businesses, recruiters, and recruiting companies will legitimately just be like, oh, this isn't a real phone number, like an actual mobile number. Oh, let's filter them out, right? You want to have a legit phone number there. And as far as email, you want to have a reasonably professional email. You don't want to have like a super old AOL or Comcast email or something that says like Sweet Baby Ray 1982. You want to have just a plain Jane regular email. Like I always advise people to be some mixture or combination of their first and last name with some kind of number in the back or some underscores in it, something that could be unique. I mean, if you could get a really unique email that's just like first and last name or some acronym and your first name or something like that, something that's unique without numbers, I think is the most ideal. I think Gmail is fine, Proton is fine, but as long as it's not anything crazy that's immature or vulgar or something that makes you seem like you're not a real person, I think you're fine, right? Now, here's where things get a little bit more detailed in terms of the header. LinkedIn, GitHub, and YouTube. And I think I'm going to harp on these pieces a lot more than the others because I think people don't understand how important they are. So your LinkedIn, I think everybody should have one, and I think that should be on your resume as a hyperlink every single time, right? And the reason that I think that is because I think LinkedIn is the most powerful job hunting platform right now. Like, I don't know, somebody might be watching this video years from now or something, and another hotter job board comes up or something. But I think LinkedIn is the most popular, not popular, but powerful job hunting platform right now because of the ability for you to, one, post content, and two, validate your humanity. So we talked about different projects, a project posting strategy, and how you would leverage that to build credibility and display your legitimacy in the market. But the humanity piece is something that people overlook. Like, you're not only competing with candidates in the IT job market, but you're also competing with AI as well too. Like, if you go on my channel right now, you can go and watch me interview for a cloud engineering role. And the first question I asked them was, do you have people who cheat through their interviews with AI? And I also have another interview where I asked, like, do you have AI candidates? Like, we're living in a trust recession, like everywhere. Not only are employees or candidates wondering, oh, is this like a real role? Oh, like, is this a ghost listing? There's recruiters also getting applications and they're like, dang, is this a real person? The easiest way, and I mean the easiest way for a recruiter to be at ease and be more confident with reaching out to you or moving you through a hiring process is for them to be able to validate your humanity at the click of a button. And that's what LinkedIn can provide. Now, if you just have a LinkedIn account with no photo, no picture, no content or anything, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, the reason that I advocated for posting all of this content related to your projects and skill set is because it's going to add to your validity from a skill set perspective, but also your humanity. They're going to be able to say, oh, this is a real person. This LinkedIn actually takes me to a real LinkedIn page. Oh, this is an actual real headshot. Oh, these are actual posts with them talking on camera, showing their personality, their skill set, their stutters, their problem-solving ability, and this isn't an AI account. Like, I had an interview recently where they literally said on the call, we had 15 people apply for this position with the exact same resume. The only thing that was different was the name, phone number, and location. Like, using an AI or a large language model to develop strong resume lines isn't uncommon in today's day and age. The likelihood of you having the same set of lines as someone is higher than you might think, especially if you're using very weak prompts or very weak personas. But you having legitimate content related to your skill set and who you are is going to be the biggest differentiating factor to you getting chosen for opportunities among other people who may even have a better skill set than you. So not only are you competing against people who are potentially better than you, more well-rounded than you, more passionate than you, but you're also competing with AI. And LinkedIn is the single easiest way to combat that. And I don't think people take advantage of it enough in today's day and age. Next thing, GitHub. In a similar way, GitHub works like that as well too. You can make sure that you have hyperlinks on your GitHub page that link back to your LinkedIn. And you can also make sure that in your GitHub repositories, like the same place that you would post your architecture diagrams or your README for your videos, you can also make sure that you have the Loom video link of you building out a project. So like, let's say a recruiter doesn't have a LinkedIn, which I doubt in today's day and age, but let's say they click your GitHub link first. And they say, well, let me check out their activity in GitHub. Let me see how often they actually post on GitHub or update their repositories or build projects. They can go and look at your README. And at the very top of your README, I always advise people to post at the very top of their README, watch me build this project. And then it takes them to the Loom video of you building the project that's also on your GitHub. So not only do they have a hyperlink on your GitHub to your LinkedIn, but they also have a hyperlink of you building out whatever it is or whatever your skill set is on your GitHub too. Because some people will look at your GitHub first, but GitHub also works as an identity or humanity validation tool, as well as it works for validating your skill set and your actual ability to deliver value to a business. Right? And now, like, let's talk about YouTube, because clearly, like, I make YouTube content now, right? YouTube is also really strong as well too. Like, in the same way that you can use Loom to build, these shorter videos related to the skill set that you're developing or showcasing, YouTube works the same way, but in longer form content. Like, at the time of me posting this, there was somebody who got fired from a very prominent business in the space, Atlassian, whatever you want to call it. And after he got laid off, he literally posted a 40-minute long architectural breakdown of what he was doing at Atlassian for 8 years. And that video got millions of views or something. Needless to say, he'll probably never not be able to get a job in his life just because of that one video showcasing his ability to communicate his value that he can add to a business and his true technical depth and skill set. YouTube is like LinkedIn on crack. But not every recruiter is really going to sit down and watch a 20 to 40 minute video of your skill set. Like, YouTube is more something that I would potentially either let people discover on their own or direct maybe in the later rounds of an interview, but it'll function the same way as Loom, But I think it's very valuable if you create content in the tech space as well too. Like if you just had a channel that's just straight technical content, that's just like, hey, I'm going to show you how I use Azure, and it's straight technical content. That's going to be just as valuable as Loom, because also you could just copy and paste your YouTube links into Loom, not to Loom, copy and paste your YouTube links into LinkedIn, and you can have two forms of validation in one way, right? But I have a YouTube channel, so clearly I'm having my YouTube channel on my resume as well too, so people can validate my humanity, validate that I actually am who I say I am, and I really actually work in this space and have the skills that I say I have, right? But I think people overlook the battle that you have against AI in this day and age. AI is a force multiplier for everything it touches. It's a force multiplier for risk as well too. Like, think about from the recruiting perspective, they're hesitant to reach out to certain candidates or move certain people through a hiring process because they can't tell if you're a real person or if you really actually have skills. And then in the interview, and you could see this in like the interviews I have posted on YouTube, they're going to have your resume up as they're interviewing you. Well, if they're a good interviewer. And as you're answering questions, like I practice this a lot for almost every interview I have. If they ask me about something that I've done, that I have a project for, I'm always going to say, oh, well, I built this. I solved this business problem with a solution I built using A, B, and C. And I also have the architecture diagram for it on GitHub if you want us to walk through it right now, or you want to take a look at it later. So not only am I putting my money where my mouth is in terms of saying, hey, I know I can solve your problem, but also you could look at it at your leisure if you want to during the interview. You know how much of a game changer that is? Now imagine you got a YouTube video that's 40 minutes of the exact business solution that they're looking for the role that you're interviewing for, right? So this is what I think makes a very, very powerful header. And this is what I think everybody should have bare minimum. Of course, you don't have to have a YouTube channel. I just happen to have one. There's some people in the space, some content creators that have YouTube channels, and some people who aren't content creators who just post their labs to LinkedIn. That is exceedingly more valuable than people understand in today's day and age, right? So that's what your header is supposed to look like, in my opinion. Next thing I think is experience. Like I see a lot of resumes out there that have, what's it called? Experience summaries or profile summaries or something at the top. I don't advise people to do that because in real life, like you really only have 15 seconds of a recruiter looking at your resume for them to determine whether or not they're going to put your resume in the call pile or the do not call pile. And this was something I learned in college. Like at the time when I was in college, I had an adjunct professor that was working at Meta, Facebook at the time. And this was what he taught us. You only got 15 seconds of someone reviewing your resume for them to determine if they're going to call you back. When I see people with like these professional summaries or career summaries at the top of their resume, it's like a paragraph. And like sometimes that paragraph doesn't even cover the skills that they have or the business impact that they can bring. It'll just be a giant paragraph that's like 7 lines that it takes years for someone to actually go through. And I think that time is better spent with just starting with your experience section. And like I also want to add on top of that, like I believe you could go and look this up on YouTube or so on, but the eye pattern of someone who's reviewing a resume goes from left to right. So top left to right and then down on the resume, right? So if the very first thing they see at the top of your resume is your name, is really your clearance status and your name, like that already gives you so much more value on paper for someone reading in that direction. And 15 seconds is not a long enough time to go through a 7-line paragraph when you could really just start with your experience section, right? And the experience section that I see also has to be written a particular way as well too, or this is the way that I think is the most efficient for someone to write their experience sections on their resume. You need to have a 3-thing framework, and we'll touch on the 3-thing framework as well too later on, but I'm going to touch on it here too. It should cover the task that you're doing or have done, the tools that you use to complete the task, and the impact, scope, and size of what that task did. And, when I give you an example, it's going to make more sense, but you don't just want to say built Azure servers on Microsoft Azure, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to just say that. You want to say architected and developed the deployment of a workload hosting a insert specific business tool here that allowed stakeholders to intercept business data for da 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 da. And when I go through the example, it's going to make more sense. But as someone reads every single bullet point on your resume, they should immediately understand the task that you're completing, the specific tools you use to get it done, and the scope, size, and impact of what that task did for the business. So every line that someone reads on your resume, they are force-fed an understanding of your skill set and the tools that you need. So if someone read it and they were non-technical, they know what tools you used. And they know what business impact was the outcome, right? But I think every single line should have a tool related to your skill set. Like, it shouldn't just be random lines that just are grammatically well written that don't have any validation of your congruence with the job description, right? But naturally, recruiters are going to spend the most time looking at this on your resume because that's what's the most valuable. And that's why it's at the top of the resume. It's the most valuable thing on the resume, your experience. And like, you might have the question, well, coach, what if I don't have any like real work experience? What if I'm working at like Foot Locker and I accumulated all of this cloud, or I accumulated all of this IT experience, but I don't have legitimate paid experience? Then rather than an experience section, you're going to have projects. Because in the same way that you're leveraging these tools that enterprise businesses are using, that is experience. Like, I would never let someone tell me or tell you, don't ever let anybody tell you that just because you built a home lab, that's not real experience. Sure, it may not be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the line that are resting on you building a project, but the same way that you would provision a virtual machine at home in an automated fashion with a pipeline, or maybe even ClickOps and manual, depending on how mature the organization is the same way that you would use that tool in the real world. The same way that you would troubleshoot it failing on deployment or failing to deploy the specific stock keeping unit or SKU or image is the same way that you would troubleshoot it in an enterprise environment at a fundamental level. So yes, if you don't have an experience section, if you don't have real experience, your projects are going to be your experience section, right? So we covered the header. The very first thing on the resume should be the experience section. After that, it should be the skills section. And the reason you want the skills section after the experience section is because if you built something, you have the skills or the tools associated with performing that build. Like, just because someone lists a whole bunch of skills on their resume, oh, I'm familiar with SQL, I'm familiar with dbeaver, I'm familiar with Azure Logic Apps or whatever, that doesn't mean that they actually know how to solve a business problem with them. I think you need to lead with your experience or your project experience and how you can solve a business problem with the skills before you list the skills. And also, like, your skills section should contain everything that you can intelligently speak to. It may be varying levels of experience with the skills on your resume, but everything that you've ever breathed on or studied or can intelligently speak to should be in your skills section. Let's say I did 30 minutes of study, an hour of study. I watched some long form YouTube videos and I have an understanding of, I'm going to just pick a random tool, Harness. Look up that tool. It's pretty interesting. Somebody reached out to me for a Harness role, and I understand how the tool can be used to solve business problems. I'm going to put it on my resume. And when somebody asks me, oh, well, what's your experience with Harness? Oh, well, I started a free certification course on it so I can understand what it does. And you use it to blah, 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 blah. But the point is, your skill section should be chocked full of everything that you can intelligently speak to and you've invested time in understanding to a certain point. That doesn't mean every skill in there is going to be something you can solve or you can build out a full-fledged architecture and business solution for, but you want to have them there so that you can show that You have breadth and you have a willingness to learn other things outside of your main stable skill set. And also it's going to fill out a lot of the white space on your resume as well too, right? But your skills are going to be second, because there's such a thing as, let's say, adjacent skills. Remember how I said earlier that Azure and AWS and GCP, they're all cloud, but the services are going to be a little bit different depending on the cloud service provider. If you know what an Azure virtual machine is, you know what an EC2 instance is. You know what compute engine is. You know what a virtual machine from a cloud perspective is. I would put it on the resume because you can understand like that they are similar. You can understand how a business can leverage that service or tool on an adjacent cloud platform and use it to solve a solution. That doesn't mean you work with it every day, but if you had to intelligently speak to what the tool is and how a business can use it, you can. So it should be in your skill section. And it should be grouped by like category as well too, right? So let's say I have a vast wealth or breadth of skills in the cloud space, like a breadth of knowledge in the cloud space. I'm going to make sure that all of the tools associated with cloud are grouped together on my resume in a section, in a line that says cloud, all the cloud services and tools I'm familiar with. Because like from a non-technical perspective, if a recruiter is reading the resume and they're looking for somebody who is familiar with the Azure cloud platform specifically, and they see tools on that same line that aren't Azure tools, they're going to know, oh, these aren't Azure cloud specific tools, but they're in the cloud section of the resume. Therefore, I know that these are cloud tools. In you grouping your services and tools together like that, you're showing a breadth of knowledge, and you're also showing them that you have more knowledge than needed for the fundamental role that you're doing. Similarly, like let's say I'm familiar with different kinds of SIMs. They're going to go in that section of the resume. If I'm familiar with different programming languages, they're going to go in the programming section of the skill section of the resume. Right? So you want to make sure that you're grouping like with like. Right? Because there's times where I have a particular skill on my resume that may not necessarily be a hard requirement for the opportunity, but they go, oh, you're familiar with X too? That's a great ad. We actually have that in our environment. Even though it's not a hard requirement, they see that I have additional value because I'm grouping all of the skills that are alike together. Right? Now, certifications. Now, some people think, certification should be higher up in the formatting of your resume. I don't think so. Like, I even still, I literally have not talked about one cloud certification yet through this talk because I have tons of videos on cloud certifications already, right? But your certification should be beneath your experience in your skills section because the logic is certifications are good to have, not a need to have. And just because someone has certifications, that doesn't mean that they have skills, and that doesn't mean they have hands-on experience, right? So let me reiterate that point a little bit more. And I'm going to use the Security Plus as an example to try and hammer in this point as much as I can. If someone has a Security Plus certification, one, that certification does not give you hands-on skills. It gives you theoretical knowledge, concepts, and it gives you, let's say, knowledge that particular tools in the cybersecurity/IT space exists. That's what the certification covers. Your baseline fundamental conceptual understanding of concepts, acronyms, and different sectors of the space. And it tells you, hey, these particular tools exist in the space. It doesn't mean that you actually have skills. And it certainly doesn't mean that you actually have experience either. This is why I think that certifications should be lower down on the resume rather than higher up. Now, some people might say, well, Charles, coach, like there's certain roles that require certain certifications. Therefore, I think they should be at the top of the resume. No. Some businesses in some verticals require certain certifications for you to even interview for certain roles. That is a fact. What are some businesses that do that? PNC, Chase, Bank of America, Truist Bank. I could go down the list of other businesses. And how would I know? Because I've either gotten a job offer from them or I've worked with them in the past in some capacity. That's a fact. But objectively, you having certifications does not necessarily mean you have skills or you have the experience to solve a business's problem based on the knowledge that you've gained from the certification. Right? And I think we could touch on certifications a little bit more, but let me harp that in as well a little bit more, right? I think certification should be lower down in the structure of a resume, specifically because they don't always give you skills. And Security Plus is a great example of that. If it was something like a CCNA that actually gives you hands-on skills with Cisco, if it was something like an AZ-104 that gives you hands-on skills with Azure, if it was something like a AWS SysOps that gives you hands-on skills with AWS, or a GCP Associate Cloud Engineer that gives you hands-on skills with GCP, I would still put it beneath the experience and skills section, because just because you learned it from a certification doesn't mean you have demonstrated the ability to solve a business problem via experience or hands-on projects. Just because you're familiar with the tools and the skills you get from the certification doesn't mean you are truly able to demonstrate them in your skills section. That is why I think certification should be lower down than experience and skills on the resume. Right? They're not the headline. They're icing on the cake. They're good to have. For certain regulated industries, for government spaces, for state government spaces, for government contracting spaces, yes, you may need a certification to get a particular opportunity. But even in you having that certification, that does not guarantee that you can solve business problems. And that's why I think it should be lower down. Right? Icing on the cake. They're not the cake. They're not the birthday. No. Right? And the last piece on this is education. Now, one thing I will say is that, particularly with students, I see them have their education at the very top of their resume. Even as a student, undergrad or graduate level, I still think this is a bad practice. And I think this is a bad practice because I think people are heavily indoctrinated to think that formal education means value. It means the opposite. Like, in my opinion, education generally means that you can follow someone else's program, you can deal with people, you can communicate with people, and you can follow a structured, rigorous path to get to the end goal. That doesn't mean that you're competitive for the IT, cybersecurity, or cloud space. And when people have their education at the very top of their resume, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot because, like I said, the like recruiters' eyes when they look at your resume follow almost like a upside down L shape. So they read left to right and then top down. They're going to see education first, and in that first 2 or 3 seconds, they're not seeing projects or experience, which is objectively the most valuable thing you can bring to a business or hiring manager. So I don't think education should be anywhere near the top of your resume. And going back to my harp on the certifications piece, like, there are certain heavily regulated industries that you will require formal education to get into, sometimes even a master's degree. But for the vast majority or the general population, no, I don't think education should be the forefront of what you're presenting to a business. Just because you have a computer science degree, that doesn't mean you can come in and solve a software-related problem for a business. Just because you have a cybersecurity degree, that doesn't mean you can come in and solve a cyber-related problem for a business. In my opinion, once again, education just means you can follow a structured, rigorous path to an end goal. You can deal with people, you can communicate and collaborate with people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can do those things. Therefore, I don't think it should be at the top of your resume. I also don't think that you should have your graduation date on your resume either. Unless you're specifically targeting an internship or a co-op opportunity as someone in undergrad or graduate school, I don't think your education should have a graduation date on it. If you finished your degree years ago, I think it matters even less. Like, as much as people don't want to admit it, like, ageism is a thing, sexism is a thing, racism is a thing. But if we can mitigate the possibility of you receiving a form of ageism based on your education, I think we should do so. You might make the argument, well, if I'm posting content, someone could guess how old I am. But if you post your grad date, there's going to be a certain perception of your maturity in life and where you are in your life as well, too. If you have a degree that's completed, I don't think that you should have your grad date on there. Unless you're like a student that's pursuing an internship or a co-op, that's the only time I think it's valuable. But even then, I still wouldn't put it on there, even if I was a student. I think graduation dates are only important if the recruiter or recruiting firm or business asks you if it's completed, asks you when you completed it or when the expected date is. Otherwise, just have, hey, computer science degree, Florida State University. That's it. And then also on the topic of education, I don't think your concentration matters either, because the bulk of what you'll learn from 90 to 95% of universities is going to be outdated anyways. Formal education, in my opinion, is very much just icing on the cake. It's not the cake. Good to have, not need to have. And I think the vast majority of people in the IT space either don't have a degree, especially the self-taught people, or they have a degree that doesn't add value to the space that they're in anyways, i.e. like a liberal arts degree or something equivalent or adjacent. This is the conglomerate of reasons why I think education should be at the very bottom of your resume, right? And one thing to note, I think you should have multiple tailored resume copies related to the roles that you're looking for. Like I said before earlier, this was like quite a while ago in the video, right? I am like, my particular niche in the cloud space probably at this point is a multi-cloud engineer. I hold knowledge to work across Azure, AWS, and GCP as a competent engineer / architect at this point in my career. That's a niche. That doesn't mean that every business or every opportunity that I personally am applying for is going to have a footprint across all three cloud service providers. There's times where I'll specifically target Azure focused roles, AWS focused roles, Azure and AWS focused roles, or AWS and GCP focused roles. But I say that to say, you want to have multiple copies of resumes geared towards the title that you're looking for with the skills associated to the title that you're looking for. So what do I mean by that? Like, if I'm looking for Azure cloud engineering roles, I'm going to make sure that my job title or the fixation of my resume is geared towards or focused on Azure cloud engineering roles. Similarly, if I was doing the same thing for GCP, I would make sure that it's geared towards GCP and AWS or whatever combination or mixture of those skill sets that I'm looking for. And also, one thing to note about like job titles or like roles that you're pursuing, they are not always going to be in alignment with the day-to-day of the role or have the title that is what you're looking for. Like, for instance, right? You see DevOps engineers as like an example. There are roles that are titled DevOps engineer that aren't necessarily in alignment with that type of work. Or there are roles that are Azure cloud engineer or just cloud engineer that may have a bigger scope of work or may be more development heavy in comparison. Like, you also need to consider as you're having these resumes and building these different resume copies that usually the people that are writing these job descriptions are HR representatives. And they're not technical enough to categorize a role properly or have the description of the role really be in alignment with what's required for the day-to-day. So the best thing you could do to combat that is make sure you have specific tailored resumes to the type of cloud engineer role you're looking for with the specific titles to match. Like recently I had an interview where they were screening me for what they called a cloud engineer, an AWS cloud engineer. But when I got to the screening call with the recruiter, they said, yeah, we're looking for someone who could do full stack development with TypeScript and build out data engineering pipelines and a data warehouse on AWS. And the resume I had submitted was a mixture of Azure and AWS with zero anything about TypeScript or full stack development. And I told them, I was like, well, what it sounds like you're looking for is a full stack developer who knows cloud and knows how to build data related software. That's not I wouldn't categorize that job title as cloud engineer. That's just one of many personal experiences that like I want to give you for understanding of why I have this thought process and methodology. But you're going to come across roles that are not necessarily in alignment with what you're looking for in terms of job title, job description, and the actual day-to-day of the role. Like those three things could be in conflict from the very beginning. But for you to potentially mitigate that risk, you want to have several different tailored copies of your resumes with different job titles and different skills and projects, right? So even now, like I probably have 8 or 9 different resume copies for different roles with different skills and tools related to the type of cloud engineering that I'm interested in, right? Because like I said, there's different types of cloud engineers for different types of platforms. You could be a cloud engineer that's that has a specialty in monitoring on Azure with a specific monitoring tool and a specific set of automation tools associated with that as well too. And that there's different types of tools for monitoring, there's different types of tools for automation, and there's different types of workflows and styles that you could potentially build your resume around. Like even now, like I still haven't talked about an Azure or cloud certification pathway because there's so many different ways you can build one to fit the type of role that you're looking for that it could be like a whole nother video, right? But let's continue here, right? But you want to have multiple tailored copies of your resume. So one day if I'm looking for Azure roles, I got different Azure resumes. And I'll have different GCP resumes, different AWS resumes, different multi-cloud engineer resumes in case I get an email or a recruiter hits me up for one that I might be interested in at that particular time in the market, right? But this is something that you definitely want to practice once you've built out your resume properly. Now, cover letters, right? Like I mentioned mentorship earlier. Like one of the first mentors that I had, he was a director for a quick service restaurant business. If you don't know what quick service restaurant businesses are, think like Domino's, Baskin Robbins, Jimmy John's, so on and so forth, right? So he was a director for all of those businesses, actually. And what he told me, and I'll never forget this, and I will never, ever forget this, and it's always going to be a coaching point of mine personally. Skip the cover letter. Skip the cover letter. In one of my first conversations with him, he was like, yeah, I never read cover letters. I never have. I never will. Someone making hundreds of thousands of dollars that are making high priority hiring decisions across multiple high fortune level businesses. You could look up all of those name brands. I think it's pretty high fortune level, right? He said, I never read cover letters. And I don't blame him. Like as I matured past that conversation, I don't blame him. Like if we go back to what I was saying earlier about how people read resumes, left to right, top to bottom, 15 seconds. A cover letter is like an additional 2 minutes. No one's going to read your cover letter. Whatever app or built-in browser extension you're using to build out these custom cover letters, I think that time is misplaced and can be used elsewhere in the job hunting process. I don't think cover letters are efficient to use in today's market, especially with the prevalence of AI. Anybody can write a cover letter about anything at the click of a button. That doesn't mean that it's legitimate. That doesn't mean it's real. And that doesn't mean that somebody's even going to read it in the first place. Even before AI was so prevalent in today's world, I never used the cover letter. Every job offer I've ever gotten ever was without a cover letter. And I'll probably never write one. I think all the time that people think about deliberating over a cover letter or thinking about it, just spend that time either developing skills or developing a different style of resume copy. No one reads them. I don't think anybody reads them. Today, I still don't think anybody reads cover letters. Put that energy elsewhere. Projects, content, so on and so forth. But a cover letter, no, absolutely not. No. Now, moving on, right? This is just a little bit more detail on the 3-step framework for the bullet points that you want to have in your resume, right? This is the 3-thing framework that you want to cover. The task that you did, the tools, like what you actually use to perform the task in the bullet point, and the scope, meaning the size, scale, or impact of what you were delivering with completing said task. So let's talk about what a bad bullet would look like. Built a dashboard to track cloud costs. That is like an abysmal line. That's awful. No tool's name, no scope, no impact. It could be anyone doing anything at any scale. Like, I think people overlook how much lack of value certain lines they have on their resume have. Like, what I'll see the most, and when I say what I'll see the most, it could be college students, it could be seasoned tech professionals. What I see the most in the resumes that I look over is that people have very, very, very well or grammatically well-written lines that don't convey any business value at all. Like, it's like reading an essay that's written by Shakespeare when I'm not even interested in the play. I'm not even interested in the artist because they're not telling me anything in general. Your lines need to follow this framework so that anybody who reads the bullet points on your resume are force-fed information about the value you can add to the business or the opportunity that you're interviewing for, right? And I know I had touched on this earlier when I was touching on the experience section, but this is what a good bullet would look like, right? Built a real-time cost visibility dashboard using Azure Monitor, Logic Apps, and Terraform that tracked spend across 15 services and alerted owners before builds crossed budget thresholds. This is a really, really good line because it follows that same framework. All right, so if we break it down like by the actual framework, the task is building a real-time cost visibility dashboard. The tools that you used is Azure Monitor, Logic Apps, and Terraform. And the scope, the size, scale, or impact of what you were doing was across 15 services within the business. Right? And it's alerting owners before bills cross budget thresholds. That is inherently impactful. Being able to monitor and understand when something goes wrong the moment it goes wrong is hugely valuable to any business. You don't want to have these bullet points on your resume that just eat up white space but don't actually convey value to what you're applying to. Just that little tweak for a lot of people's resume is a game changer. You want someone who's non-technical to be force-fed information about the technical value and the business value you can add without them having to ask you, oh, well, what did you mean here when you said that you built a dashboard? Like, if someone has to go through your resume and ask for clarification on what you claim that you're able to deliver to a business, you've already lost. Like, in today's day and age, you probably won't get a phone call. And if you do get a phone call, they're calling you just because they wanted to give you a shot. You shouldn't have to give clarification to the skills that you have or the value you can add to a business. It should be immediately understood before the true first contact with you in any shape, way, form, or fashion. But this is what an example of a good bullet looks like. And of course, like I have a video, a longer form YouTube video. Well, this is already super long form, but I have a YouTube video covering that as well too, right? But like in today's day and age as well too, like AI is the most prevalent. I'm always going to circle back to AI being like super prevalent in today's market. It's no secret that people leverage large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, to help them generate their bullet points. But they do so in a haphazard way. I don't think a lot of people use it in a thoughtful way. I think they just prompt whatever they're using and just say, build out bullet points for a SOC analyst role without having the specificity related to what they're looking for. So like, here's the framework that I use whenever I want to leverage AI to help me build out bullet points for a skill set that I want to convey or a series of deliveries or projects that I want to convey to a business. This is the exact prompt that I think everybody should use or at least start with when they're experimenting with building a resume with a large language model. I want you to take the persona of an IT professional who's great at writing resume bullet points that capture 3 things in every bullet. 1, the task being done. 2, the tools being used to complete the task. And 3, the scope, size, and impact of what was done. I'll send you a job description or a series of labs and tools that I learned and used, and you should give me the bullet points using that optimized framework. This is the exact prompt I think everybody should start with. The exact prompt I think everybody should start with if they're at the stage where they have the skills, but they don't know how to write the resume to convey the value properly. This is the exact framework I think everybody should use. And of course, actually not of course. Not it goes without saying. It definitely goes with saying. You want to proofread the things that you're being fed by the AI. You don't want to just grab it and copy and paste it into a resume. You still want to go back and forth and refine some of what you're getting. It may even give you a grandiose level of ownership or delivery or scope, impact, and size that you really didn't contribute to in real life. You still want to proofread every single line to make sure that you're not underselling yourself or overselling yourself. But at the very, very least, you want to follow this framework. And I can't stress this enough. You want to build out these bullet points or build out that experience or that project section after you've truly developed the skills on the resume. Because the kiss of death on any resume, as perfect as it may be, even if you take this exact framework and execute it to the T, if you can't legitimately speak to what you're putting on the resume, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And you're only going to ruin the potential relationships or opportunities that you have before they even come to fruition. You need to make sure that you're proofreading and you can actually speak to the things that are being put on the resume. And I'm not going to say it goes without saying, because a lot of people try to skip way ahead. They go, oh, well, I could do cloud. Let me just get the resume and get the interviews. You're going to embarrass yourself, and then you're going to ruin recruiting relationships and business relationships in your wake if you go down that route. Everything that I'm going through in this map is in the exact order that I think you should do it in. And you don't want to just skip straight to resume. You could very much take this prompt, very much write some bullet points, but that won't fix the lack of skills problem or the lack of skills that you need to actually get into the space. I've seen a lot of people think that they could just get through an interview by faking it. Everybody knows. Everybody knows when you put something on your resume and you lie about it. Everybody knows. I know. The panel knows. Hell, even the recruiter, they might not necessarily know, but they definitely have a fishy feeling about you. I highly advise people against doing that. Make sure that you're truly building the skills before you start building out a resume to convey something that you claim that you can do. Because I promise those relationships will be ruined and they're not going to be able to be something you can recover. Now, once you have the skills, once you have the body of work in terms of the projects, you have the resume, you have the GitHub, LinkedIn, et cetera, everything is built out, right? Once you go through those phases, you really have the skills, you understand how to convey the business value, you have the undeniable proof of the work being done and you being able to intelligently speak to it and replicate it. Now it's time to actually look for a role. And I think this is going to be the part of this map that is considerably different than people think it should be. I don't necessarily advocate for people putting in millions of applications and getting roles that way. I think that's how job hunting was done years ago, and it's not how job hunting should be done now. So just to recap everything that we've come through at this point, build your foundations, build the skills via projects, document said projects, be able to publicly display the projects and the skill set and the business acumen and problem solving process that you've developed, build the resume to convey that value. And now it's time to actually job hunt. The old way of looking for a role is you pumping out resumes left and right and you getting chosen by a business, you interviewing and you go through the interview process, you sign and so on and so forth. That's the old way. That is not how I think people should be looking for roles at this point in the state of the world. You need to create a brand and market yourself for the roles that you're looking for. And that might be a mouthful. What do you mean brand and market yourself? What does that mean? I'm looking for a job, not looking for, a sponsorship. It could be you might have to wrap your head around that concept, but if I go and I look for a candidate, and if I'm a recruiter, that's an even better example. Recruiters, they're not looking for candidates in Workday. Generally, they're not. People even hate putting in applications in Workday or ADP. It's awful. I even hate it. I still hate it now. But they're not finding candidates by looking in a CRM or something like that. They have an AI scraper that they find candidates from on job boards, blogs, YouTube videos, and based on their scraping of publicly available information, they'll reach out to the candidate, a candidate that they think is strong or a good fit for the opportunities that are available. And the way that you get these opportunities, these recruiters to come to you, is by having a strong brand and marketing related to the skill set or the business problem that you can solve in whatever type of vertical or realm you're in. And we're talking about cloud engineering, so we're going to, fixate on the cloud engineering piece. These are the 6 or 7 job hunting boards I think everyone should use once they're at the stage when they have like a very strong resume. And I'm going to start in the strongest and just go all the way down, give you the pros and cons of all of these boards and why I use them and why I think you should use them. LinkedIn, it goes without saying, I think at this point in the video, I think it's the strongest job hunting platform that we have right now. And the reason that I think it's the strongest job hunting platform is the ability to validate your humanity and post content that other people can interact with. Posting content that people can't interact with, is it publicly, like a GitHub account? People can kind of interact with it, but you can't really get as much visible interaction with just posting things on GitHub. On LinkedIn, you can see how many impressions you have, how many likes you have. You can see what people think about your project. People can give you feedback on your project. People give you feedback on your thoughts. That interaction breeds more interaction, right? And the humanity validation piece. You could have a really strong set of GitHub projects on your GitHub. But you can have a weak GitHub profile that doesn't validate your humanity, that doesn't actually show anything. You could be checking in you could be committing code every single day, but if there's not necessarily a person associated with what's being built or displayed, it kind of falls to the wayside. But on LinkedIn, you can overtake someone with a very strong GitHub by just having content of you and the business problems you can solve with your skill set. Right? So you marketing yourself as a cloud professional that's proficient in Wiz, which is a cloud security posture management tool, Azure Policy, which is the policy tool on the Azure platform for governance, and infrastructure as code. You can solve a particular business problem with the Azure cloud platform with a specific set of security related tools for the platform. The more specific you can be with the type of business problem you can solve, and the easier you can convey that to the market or the realm that you're trying to get into, the stronger your LinkedIn profile is. And the more content that you have that people interact with, the more eyes and the more recruiters see your content to reach out to you to say, hey, I think this guy can solve our business problem because he's in my face every day and people are always interacting with his content. And it's technical, consumable, digestible content. Every other job hunting board doesn't do it the same way LinkedIn does. LinkedIn can be comparable to something like an Instagram or TikTok. You could go viral on LinkedIn. Imagine going viral for a technical piece of content related to your skill set. You would almost always be guaranteed getting a job in that space because everybody would know who you are and what problem you can solve. This is why I think LinkedIn is the strongest job hunting platform out there right now. I'm not necessarily going to put the others in order at this point, but I will cover as deep as I can the pros and cons associated with each platform. Second one I'm going to go through is Dice. I think Dice isn't necessarily the second strongest job hunting board for the reason that you think. Dice is a recruiting board where, let's say it's one way. In LinkedIn, you can interact with recruiters and they can interact with you. You can see who they are and they can see who you are. You can comment on their posts, they can comment on your posts. It's both ways. It's like a graph that goes both ways. Dice, one-way graph. You can build out your job hunting board. You can brand or market yourself based on your niche and your skill set and what you're looking for. but you can't necessarily interact with recruiters unless they interact with you. Like there's DMs on Dice, but very, very rarely have I ever gotten DMs on Dice. I've probably gotten maybe 10 direct DMs from recruiters on Dice over the last 5 years. But I've gotten tons of job offers from Dice for job listings. I think your capacity to be seen on Dice is very, very high. It can be comparable to LinkedIn in terms of the amount of eyes that you'll get when your profile is built out properly, but it lacks that human interaction and human touch to LinkedIn. It's very bland website, but once you build it out properly, you fully flesh out your profile, you optimize it, you will get people hitting you up every day, especially if you have a strong resume, which you should if you're at this part in the map. Indeed, I think is a closer relative to LinkedIn than Dice is. There's a job hunting profile there that you want to optimize, that you want to build out with your resume properly. I've gotten considerably more DMs on Indeed than I have on Dice in the last 5 years. And I've gotten tons of opportunities and job offers from Indeed as well too. You can't post content on Indeed, and you also cannot post content on Dice. However, there's a more human factor there with the opportunities you get in Indeed. Recruiters will DM you. They'll say, hey, are you interested in this role? Yes or no? You hit the yes button. Hey, can you schedule a call? That's a lot more human interaction than Dice. Dice, I would say you get more of a overseas type of recruiter to reach out to you. An overseas recruiter reaches out to you on Dice. They forward you to the onshore recruiter in the US. You move forward through the hiring process. But all of these platforms are, let's say, predicated on you still having a strong profile for the platform. But Indeed has more of a human touch in comparison to LinkedIn. ZipRecruiter, I would compare it more to a Dice. There is an opportunity for you to get DMs on on ZipRecruiter, but I probably have gotten less DMs in comparison to Indeed, and considerably less DMs than comparison to ZipRecruiter than LinkedIn. So just to be clear, I get more DMs on Indeed. So LinkedIn the most DMs, Indeed the second most DMs, ZipRecruiter the third most DMs. You can't post content on ZipRecruiter, but you can build a strong profile just like everything else. And recruiters look there for sure. Monster, I would rank this lower down in the tier list as well too. Less of a human element than Indeed. More of a human element than Dice. About the same of the human element as ZipRecruiter. There are DMs on Monster as well, but I don't think it's as popular as it was when it was like I could think back to a time where you would see ads for Monster. Right? I don't think it's that prevalent anymore, but I've definitely gotten job offers from Monster. And like I said, you want to optimize your profile on every single one of these once you have that strong resume built out. Clearance jobs and USA jobs. So I don't necessarily want to put this at the bottom of the tier list, but I would put it at the bottom of the tier list because it's more favorable for candidates who have a clearance. Like I said, mine is educated. I have a public trust, so I think these platforms are beneficial to me personally, but it's not as user-friendly as you would think. And also people have this misconception with clearance jobs that you have to have a security clearance for you to have an account on the website. That's not true. At the time of me filming this, you can have a clearance jobs account without a clearance and apply to roles that require you to be clearable, even though the website is called clearance jobs. So I just want to make sure that doesn't go over your head. You can have a job hunting profile on clearance jobs without having a security clearance. And you can apply for roles that require candidates to be able to obtain a security clearance. I don't think that's talked about enough. And I think that is also why people who are just citizens, non-military people, don't consider using clearance jobs. But I would put it at the bottom because of that fact. And you can post content on clearance jobs. I don't think the interaction that you'll get will be comparable to anything like LinkedIn at all. If anything, I think it's easier to find a cleared role on LinkedIn than it is clearance jobs. The platform's UI is unintuitive. It's not fun to use. It's not flashy either. It's very much like somebody who used to work in the military just said, oh, I can make a job hunting board, and they did with as minimal effort as possible. Does it work? Yes, 100%. I do think this should be in everyone's rotation, whether or not they have a clearance or not. But it's just not as popular or known about or used, I think. And then USA jobs, honorable mention, I put it in the same tier as clearance jobs. It's not user-friendly. And also, it can be a pain to apply to jobs in USA jobs. Like, it's such a pain to put in an application on USA jobs that I think that it's not that valuable unless you already have a clearance or public trust. Have I gotten an offer from USA jobs before? Absolutely not, because I don't use it as much to put in job applications. But if I did have a clearance, if I already did have a clearance, I would use it 100%, because you'll definitely find roles without even trying that say need secret, need top secret in poly. Like, that's like the mecca. These two platforms are the mecca if you have a clearance. But ultimately, I think LinkedIn is the strongest in comparison to everything in this map so far. And that should be the first job hunting profile that you build out and optimize once you have your resume done. Second one, I think, is Dice. Third, I think, is Indeed. Then ZipRecruiter, then Monster, then Clearance Jobs, and then USA Jobs, in that order. That's the order I think you should go in to build out your job hunting profiles once you have the strong resume, right? And the personal brand, like, even now, like, I don't even consider myself someone who has like a personal brand. I still try to wrap my head around it presently. I have a brand that's established enough across my job hunting profiles, across YouTube. I don't even think recruiters really look at my Instagram or TikTok that much, but I have enough content to validate my skill set and what I can add to a business that my proof or ability to produce things for a business is undeniable. And that's ultimately what you want to pursue as you're trying to get into the space. You want someone to come across your first and last name on a platform, see a picture of you, see what you have added to the space, and know that you are undeniable as a candidate. You may not get every single opportunity that comes your way, but you should have relevant information to you and your skill set that is undeniable. Undeniable. That's what you're striving for as you're working through the process from zero to I'm a cloud engineer. The personal brand, to me, when I think of personal branding as it pertains to job hunting, how undeniable can I be with my skill set and presence that people can't help but give me opportunities on a regular basis? I think you have a well-established brand, personal or not, if you're inundated with opportunities on a regular basis. That is the marker of whether or not you've done the right things leading up to this point in this map to really say, okay, like, I have a brand, right? Now, here is the targeted job hunt portion, right? So if you follow the map properly, fundamentals, build the skills, pick a cloud platform, build a portfolio of work and the undeniable body of work, and build it publicly so that everybody can see that it's undeniable, and build out the resume associated with those skills, and build out and optimize the job hunting profiles based on the resume that you've developed. Your content that you've been posting up until this point should have helped you establish some form of brand that can display who you are, the problems you can solve, and the true skill set that you have. And just to be clear, like, you're not going to wait until you get to the job hunting phase to post content. No, that is why the posting content piece was higher up on the map, because you should be doing that. You should be doing that up until you're getting interviews. As soon as you finish something, boom, document it, post it. Even if you're not ready to hunt for a job, post it. You want to have that backlog, that repository of content leading up to this point. So now that you have everything built out, you have your resume, your profiles, everything. Now it's like actual job hunting time, right? And like, I want to be clear about job hunting. Like, I forgot where it was. I think I saw this on Instagram or something. No, I didn't see this on Instagram. A recruiter, courtesy to the same place that I met my mentor at, what they had told a group of us more early career people at the time was that if you're looking for a job, that should be your full-time job. Even if you have a job that you hate, looking for a job should be your full-time job. You should treat it as such. That means I'm getting up at 8. I'm refreshing my job hunting profiles, right? And just to give you some extra sauce about the job hunting profile section, right? Every single day, okay, no, I'm gonna cover this as I go. But the point is, you need to be actively pursuing an opportunity as if you don't have a full-time job, because that's going to pay you dividends in terms of having the consistency, the flow, the momentum into getting into what you want, right? You have to show up every day, not for your present self, but for your future self, right? But this is where things really start to come together if you've been doing all of the steps leading up into everything in this map, right? So the goal is, once you have all of these profiles optimized, you have the resumes, you need to be applying to 20 roles a day, minimum. Like if I met someone today and they said, hey, Coach Charles, I've been looking for a role, I always ask, well, how many applications have you put in, like, since you've been looking for a role? And they'll say something like, I put in like 10 applications in the last 30 days. That's not trying. Like, someone who is aggressively looking for a role will do 20 applications a day plus. Hell, I have a job and I still put in at least 10 applications a day, just to make sure I have a lay of the land in terms of what the market is looking for in terms of the skill sets that I have available for the market. That means 20 applications a day with optimized, refreshed profiles, and we'll touch on that. Consistent content, posting every other day, and having that high volume. Like, a combination of all of these things are going to be constant leads. So there's going to be inbound leads and there's going to be outbound leads, right? Inbound leads meaning like recruiters reaching out to you and saying, hey, you have the skill and the brand that we want. Come and interview for this role. That's the most ideal opportunity for you to get hired into a role. Outbound leads, it means that you're actively looking. You're the one putting in applications and reaching out to people for the roles. Someone who's competitive following this map is going to do 20 applications a day, right? That means you're still going to be getting people calling you and emailing you, but you're also emailing and DMing people every single day. You're not being competitive or aggressive enough in the job market if you're not maximizing every opportunity you have to be seen by someone who has an opportunity you're looking for. Like, the purpose of having this content is so that you're in every recruiter's face in the space every single day. The people who are getting hired aren't necessarily people who have more skills than you, that are more technical than you, that necessarily have more experience than you. They're people who were seen first. Like, they're people who were seen first. If you can maximize your opportunity to be seen and people can understand, like, effortlessly the value you can add, you're going to get a job really, really fast, right? So 20 applications a day is what I think is the minimum requirement for someone who's being competitive and aggressively looking for a role. And you want to track everything with this. It doesn't have to be some grandiose data project, but you need to have an application tracker. I use Google Sheets. I tell everybody to just use Google Sheets. Track the role that you applied for, the job title, the date that you applied, the stage of the interview process that you're in, and the salary band or the hourly rate that is associated with the role. So every day you want to be tracking that. Because the more data you collect, the easier it is for you to identify patterns in what works for you. Like, in 1 week, you might post an infrastructure as code lab in Azure. You might combo that with, your consistent 20 applications a day. And you might notice that when you post a particular kind of lab, or maybe even at a particular time of day, you get more interactions or more inbound leads. You want to collect as much data as you can through the process so you can see the patterns emerge and seek to optimize the things that are giving you a better return for your investment of time as you look for roles. If you're just mindlessly putting in applications and not considering the type of business you're applying for, the size of business you're applying for, the vertical you're applying for, the maturity of the business you're applying for, you may be putting yourself in a position where you don't have enough information to optimize or shorten the job hunting process. You want to collect as much data as you can, and that's the minimum type of data that I think everyone should be tracking when they're applying. Job title, date applied, stage in the interview process, salary band / hourly rate that you're applying for. All the other variables that I listed would be additional good to haves, but those are the bare minimum things that you should be tracking as you're going through the 20 applications a day. And it's exceptionally easy to do 20 applications a day manually, let alone how easy it is for you to create a job hunting agent to do your applications for you every day. That's exceptionally easy as well. Right? But I always tell people to learn to do that process manually first, because you want to understand some of the kinks of the platforms, the strengths and the weaknesses of the platform. And sometimes you might have a skill set that is more preferred by a particular platform. Although I think LinkedIn is the strongest, like I said, the more data that you collect, the more you can see different patterns emerge based on what you're looking for. This is zero to cloud engineer. For a particular type of cloud engineer, maybe one that wants to work on-site or hybrid in Florida with a monitoring skill set related to Kubernetes, they might see a particular pattern emerge for a particular platform at a particular hour with a particular style of content that they post on LinkedIn. These things are some of the unique things about you as an individual that may or may not speed up your job hunting process. And the more data that you have, the easier it is for you to leverage those quirks or those benefits that are specific to you and your skill set. But you won't be able to tap into those things unless you're consistently doing the applications, consistently showing up, and consistently refreshing and using your job hunting profiles, right? And I think I missed a section in this, but just to scroll back up to the job hunting profiles, right? Every single day that you're applying with these job hunting profiles and using them, you want to refresh the profile, meaning you want to upload a fresh copy of a resume every single day to all of these job hunting boards as you're applying. Now, what exactly does that do to the job hunting process? It puts your application, or it puts not your application, it puts your profile at the top of the queue for the platform, right? So let's say, like, I'm going to give you an example with Dice. When you build out your job hunting profile for Dice, you can see the latest date that you updated your resume, right? So what's today? The 22nd. If I upload a resume on the 22nd, in the Dice portal for my profile, it'll say resume last updated on the 22nd. If I wait 7 whole days to update my resume on that profile, it's going to look like a stale profile to recruiters versus someone who's consistently updating their resume and their profile every single day. You're going to be in their face every single day. Same thing with Indeed, same thing with ZipRecruiter, Monster, and ClearanceJobs. They can see the last time that you've uploaded or used the platform from the side of the recruiter. Same thing with LinkedIn. You want to be in their face every day, and for you to have an advantage in doing so, you want to update your resume to the profile every single day, along with doing your 20 applications, along with posting content. This is how you really maximize the opportunity to get those inbound leads or get those inbound opportunities. All right, so let me scroll back down, right? And like I said, you want to optimize every single one of those profiles. Make sure that they're fully fleshed out. Make sure that you're using that template, that resume template that you should have built out earlier, to attach the exact same bullet points, the exact same verbiage across all of your job hunting profiles. It should be identical. Like, if I find your LinkedIn, I should be able to look at your LinkedIn and get the exact same information that I would get from your resume without asking you for your resume. Same thing with Dice, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster, ClearanceJobs. Someone shouldn't have to ask you for your resume for them to understand the value you could add to a business. That's what the job hunting profiles are for. They're a way for you to pre-validate and pre-vet yourself before someone puts eyes on your resume. So they look at your profile, they say, okay, this person could do this, this, and this, blah, 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 blah. And then they ask for your resume. And then it's not your resume because it should be identical to what you have listed on your job hunting profiles. It's not going to be them reviewing your resume. They're just going to go, oh, okay, this matches what I already saw about them online. So now they're just talking to you about you and your skill set, not your resume, because they've already seen it. That's what a strong or optimized profile should look like. Now, if you're doing that properly and you have everything built out for each job hunting platform, you should get at least one recruiter to reach out to you every other day. At least, at the bare minimum, at least you should have at least one recruiter reach out to you every other day on at least one job hunting platform. You have 6 or 7 up there. There's literally no way that you wouldn't get some type of traction if you've done that properly. And to be specific about that, it's not always going to be for roles that you're the most excited about. But I mean, if you don't have a job, or if you're not in the tech space, or you're not in the cloud space, that's still a win, right? You're not always going to get an inbound lead from a role that's paying you the exact amount that you want with the exact skill set that you want, that's fully remote, that lets you work outside the country. You're going to get opportunities as they present themselves. And the more competitive and aggressive people with a stronger personal brand, with stronger content, are going to have more of those ideal opportunities for themselves. But it all starts with you having that skill set, for one, the resume, the job hunting profiles, the consistent 20 applications a day, the consistent profile refreshes, and consistently making and posting content related to the skill set and the value you can add to a business every other day, right? But it pays off because it's inbound. Like, and I really want to harp on the inbound versus outbound piece of this, right? Inbound leads are like let's say you wanted to date somebody. What do you think would be the most optimal for you to get the outcome that you want? You walking up to them and approaching them, or them approaching you? Chances are, if they're approaching you, it's probably going to go better in your favor. They've already shown interest. They already see value before getting to know who you are. You want to have as many inbound leads as possible, and this is the strategy for you to do so. Those are really going to be the offers that you want to pursue. The outbound offers, right? It's still a blessing, and it's still competitive for you to apply to a role and get chosen for an interview. But it's more in your favor for them to reach out to you instead, for you to choose if you are even interested. That's how you want to navigate the job market. How can I put myself in the best position to get people to reach out to me rather than I reach out to them? How can I make my skill set so undeniable, so prevalent, so in their face that they can't help but reach out to me because they know I'm valuable? That is what you're striving to build prior to getting to the interview stages, right? And like I said, guys, this is you building your proof of humanity. You going through this process. You having these different resume copies is going to validate the humanity that you need to display in the market. Because you're not just competing with people. And you may be competing with someone who's doing this exact same process from end to end, but you're also competing with AI candidates. Like, you go on my channel right now, open up another tab and type in Cloud Tech Exec interviews. There's interviews that I have where I specifically ask the people interviewing me, do you have people that are cheating with AI, and do you have AI candidates? Recruiters and businesses are terrified. They're terrified that they're going to hire somebody who, one, either doesn't have the skills, or two, hire somebody that isn't even a real person that's selling all of their data, secrets, and credentials to a foreign bad actor. This is going to help you mitigate and alleviate a lot of that anxiety that those businesses or opportunities may come with. This process is designed to do that. if you're skipping steps, like you're not putting yourself in the most optimal position to capitalize. Videos validate that you're a real person. Content validates that you're a real person. Right? Now, along with the outreach piece, I want to touch on that as well too, right? This is like I said, everything on here is a strategy that I use that I would 100% tell somebody to use, right? You want to have outreach videos. Well, specifically, the two videos that I think everyone should have that they should film on Loom is an outreach video and a rejection Loom video. I posted about this on TikTok a little while ago. There's other videos that I think would be beneficial to have as well too, but at the bare minimum, these are the two videos that I think you should incorporate making into your job hunting process. And this is specifically for outbound, meaning you reaching out to recruiters, and inbound for you rejecting recruiters. And it's gonna make some sense in a second. Like, why would I reject a recruiter? Right? If you're following this process properly, you're gonna get inbound leads for opportunities that you want and opportunities that you don't want. You want to respond to both of them. And the reason you want to respond to both of them, particularly on platforms like Indeed and Clearance Jobs and so on and so forth, is because you still want to have that connection. More specifically, that human connection, right? So I'm gonna touch on the rejection video, right? So if you're following this process, you're gonna get inbound leads for roles that you want and inbound leads for roles that you don't want. The roles that you don't want, instead of you typing them a Loom message, you're gonna send them a video of you introducing yourself, introducing your skill set, your background, right? The value you can add to a business and what you're looking for. And you're gonna tell them, hey, this may not be the right fit for me, but if you know someone who has a role that aligns with what I'm looking for, connect with me, right? You're going to get a lot more leads for roles that you're not interested in than roles that you're interested in, because that's the way the world works. That's the way the world works across anything. You're going to get more of what you don't want rather than what you want. That's just how anything works, right? But you want to have that video because that connection is going to potentially spiral or cascade into you getting an opportunity that you do want. Like the TikTok video that I posted was me sending a recruiter the rejection video and them responding, wow, I really appreciate you making that video, sending it to me, and marketing yourself. I'm going to keep you in mind. Let's connect. I don't know if that's going to turn into a role tomorrow or maybe next week, but I know for a fact there is a lasting impression on that one recruiter, because the vast majority of people don't take the opportunity to validate their humanity on these platforms or add content to the platforms either, let alone make a specific video for a recruiter. Like, even from the recruiter perspective, the same way that they're wading through AI candidates and looking for candidates, they get rejected like us too. Recruiters have ideal candidates that they want. They have ideal opportunities for people that don't want them. To get a specific rejection video like that is going to give you that connection, right? So everyone should have that video. The other video that you should have is an outreach Loom video, meaning it's one that you would make to do the same thing, introduce yourself, your skill set, your background, the specific type of roles that you're interested in looking for, and that's going to make you stand out, specifically among AI candidates. You're just going to make it organic. It doesn't have to be hyper scripted and edited like my videos or anything like that. But you want to have something that, once again, displays what you're looking for as well as your humanity, because it's immediately going to make you stand out. Because they're going to think, wow, this person is like taking this process seriously. They're taking the platform seriously. They're taking themselves seriously, and they don't want to waste time connecting with people that don't know or align with what they're looking for. You're immediately going to stand out in comparison to AI candidates. Immediately. This is the second video that you should make. So the process would look like every day you're refreshing a LinkedIn profile. You're specifically looking for roles in the job hunting board of LinkedIn that have posted by X recruiter or posted by this company. So if it's posted by a recruiter, you may be able to DM them if you're already connected with them. But I advise people to invest in LinkedIn Premium. I don't even know how much it is at the time of me making this video. Maybe like $50 a month or something. If you have a job and you have the additional income to invest in LinkedIn Premium, definitely do so. The ability to DM recruiters is more valuable than people think. So like, imagine the most ideal scenario, right? A role just got posted 8:30 a.m. You woke up at 8. You got yourself together. You refresh your profile and you're looking for roles. It just got posted at 8 a.m. It's 8:30. You're one of the first candidates to apply. And then not only are you one of the first candidates to apply, you DM the recruiter to express your interest, and you also attach a video for them so that they can understand your background, your skill set, the value you can add to the space, who you are, and know that you're a real person. Not only have you like moved with such purpose and speed, but you've immediately separated yourself from every other candidate because you hit the listing early. You can tell them exactly what you want, exactly what you can provide, and you've already validated that you're a real person. Everybody should have this in their tool belt. Like I said, this is something that I use. I think everybody should use this, but these are the minimum 2 videos I think everyone should have for their inbound and outbound strategy for Loom. Not for Loom, but for LinkedIn. And similarly, like, you're not necessarily going to be DMing recruiters on Dice and Indeed and Monster and ZipRecruiter, but you're still going to get inbound leads from all of those other platforms as well too. Like I've been talking in terms of DMs, right? But in the same way, you'll get an email from a recruiter that's not necessarily for the ideal role you're looking for. Hey, thanks for connecting. This isn't really what I'm looking for, but I hope we could connect earlier. Hyperlink the video on that message. They'll watch it. They'll respond to your email, keep you in their Rolodex. I guarantee you they will do that. You get an email from ZipRecruiter, not what you're looking for. Hey, thanks for connecting. Hyperlink the video. Indeed, hey, thanks for connecting. Hyperlink the video. And also, like, the thing about Loom that I really like for this type of usage of the platform is that you can see who watched the video. So you can get validation that someone, of a real person, watched the video. Like they are familiar with you. They are familiar with you, your skill set, and what you do. Right? And like, for those of you who might be, you might be in the market now. You may not necessarily use this process, but you're in the market. You know, there's a lot of overseas recruiters that reach out to you. They may not necessarily speak the best English. They may not necessarily be the easiest to talk to, but you can filter out the overseas recruiters or the real life people, the non-AI recruiters, by sending them this video, because you can tell who watches it. So let's say you do have an inbound lead. You're not really sure if it's for you or so on and so forth. You could shoot them the video to see if it's a real person and not just a bot reaching out to you to harvest your information. Right? This is like a multifaceted purpose and use associated with this, right? This is a very, very strong tool for your job hunting arsenal. I think everybody should have at least these 2 videos. There's other videos that'll be useful, but these 2 are the most useful I think everybody should have, right? And these are like the scripts, or like the type of scripts that I think you should consider. These videos aren't going to be super long, right? We're talking like maybe a minute and 30 seconds max. Once you edit it down, it's probably going to be smaller realistically. Hey, I just applied to the role. This is my skill set. This is the type of environment I work in. Here's the type of problems I work to solve. Here's my toolkit. Here's 3 or 4 tools. Hey, connect with me down below or book a call with me if I'm the person that you're looking for. Right? Let me touch on that as well too, right? So also with Loom, like when you make your videos, there is a comment section in every video that you make. So people that watch the video can interact with it. They could like it. They could leave a comment. And also you get the information that they watched the video that I was saying earlier. So they get all of this added value from you reaching out. And then you could leave a link in the bottom of the video and in the pinned comment for the video and the top comment for the video that says, hey, no, not even in the pinned comment, in the description of the video, connect with me on LinkedIn here, and put a hyperlink to your LinkedIn. And then right under that, you would put, let's connect on a call here, or let's discuss the opportunity here. And you put a Calendly link. If you don't know what Calendly is, it's a tool that lets you have a calendar booking link in a single link, right? So you would put the hyperlink to your LinkedIn and you would put the hyperlink to your Calendly in the description of your outbound Loom video. So now they see, oh, wow, this is a real person. They have real skills. They're taking this seriously. They're moving fast in the process. They know exactly what they want. They have a defined skill set that I could work with, and they're making it easy for you to connect with them. And also some more sauce on that hyperlink. You don't want it to just go to your LinkedIn profile. You want the hyperlink to your LinkedIn to go to a post of a video of you building something relevant. So if I'm applying for like a cloud engineering role, refresh my profile, find the role as soon as it's posted, find the recruiter that posted it, DM them, send them the outreach video. I'm going to make sure that the hyperlinked video in my description is going to be one related to Azure. So not only are they going to connect with me, but the first thing they're going to see is that also, they might think, well, this might be an AI video from, some random person. They see you talking through a project that you built from end to end and describing everything as the first or second interaction with you. That's exceedingly strong in terms of outreach. Right? So that's how I would structure that Loom video with that type of skeleton framing for the script if you're going to film that script, right? Second thing, the rejection script, right? Thank them. Thanks for the opportunity. This is not the role that I'm looking for. Like you would say, thanks for the opportunity. The type of roles that I'm looking for is A, B, and C. I really appreciate the opportunity that you consider me for this, blah, blah, blah. Let's connect on LinkedIn down below. You'll get a notification that they watched the video. And then you take it from there. You'd be surprised how favorably people will respond to that because they're not just sending emails into a void. They're not just burning their LinkedIn credits as a recruiter. They will definitely thank you for replying to them and keep you in their Rolodex. And I promise you that is going to pay dividends later on because you never know who you're going to connect with again. But if you're in their face all the time, they'll probably see you more often than not. Right? But the Calendly link and the LinkedIn link for the outreach one is going to be really, really powerful. The LinkedIn link is also just good. You still want to connect with people that don't necessarily have the opportunity that you're looking for. But the bottom line is you want to make it really, really easy for them to validate who you are and schedule a conversation. Like there have been hiring managers because not only can recruiters be the ones who own a listing for an opportunity, there's hiring managers who own a listing for an opportunity on LinkedIn. I see them post it. I apply to it. I DM them. I tell them, hey, let's schedule a call. And now we're already in first round interview stages just because I have my own Calendly link. I'm not waiting for the HR process to run its course. Like the fastest way to get hired in today's market isn't you necessarily going through an application and waiting for HR to process your application and then it's not going through the traditional HR process. That's not the fastest way to do it in today's market. The fastest way to do it is for you to get inbound opportunities, follow this process, hop on calls as fast as you can, go through interviews as fast as you can, and then get a call after you finish interviewing from the recruiter and say, hey, they really want to move forward with you and send you an offer. All we need you to do is put your application in. People go about the process backwards because that's the way that it's always been done. And that works, but it's just slow or it's just not as efficient. You want to flip that. You want to connect with the people, have the people move you fast through the process because they know that you're a real person with real skills, and get the offer before you actually have to go through the business process. And this is the exact process that I think everybody should do to expedite it. Now, like once you start to get those opportunities, those inbound, those outbound leads and so on, you're not like at the finish line. You're not at the finish line you're not at the finish line yet, right? You still got to perform. You still have to come into the interview and crush it, leave no stone unturned, and show the value that you're able to provide to the business undeniably. And that's very much easier said than done. It's very much easier said than done. Like for some roles, like I'm not going to say for some roles, but from my personal perspective, after being in the space for so long, there's only so much interview prep you can do for certain roles. If it's a skill set that you're genuinely unfamiliar with, I always advise people to do projects related to the services that are mentioned in the job description. Like if you know you're applying for, let's say, a cloud engineer that uses Terraform and Azure DevOps in an environment that has Datadog for monitoring and Azure Functions in the environment, along with, let's say, let me pick something random, Log Analytics Workspace as well, and they're doing a migration from Log Analytics to Datadog. I'm going to tell you to make sure that in your portfolio before the project, you have a project that's fixated on not one, but a few of those tools. And the beauty of the cloud space that I think people overlook is that a lot of the tools that enterprise businesses use frequently are available for you to use and grab for free. Azure Functions, Datadog, Log Analytics Workspace. You can go and grab all of these tools online for free right now with just an email address and start building a solution with them. Some services associated with specifically the Azure Cloud Platform, well, any cloud platform, are going to be services that you absolutely must have knowledge about. The compute, network, and storage concepts, you have to understand what a VNet is. You have to understand what a subnet is. You have to understand what blob storage is. You have to understand what the identity and access management blade does as it pertains to virtual machines. You have to understand what a function is, what a Azure Automation Runbook is, what Log Analytics is. There are certain services that you must have baseline knowledge of in cloud. But there are also certain services that may be specific to that particular business and the solution that they're solving. It's not every day you're going to have the opportunity to work with AWS or Amazon Ground Station or Kinesis. It's not every day you're going to work with SCCM. If you don't know SCCM, Security Center for Cloud, it's the security tool on GCP, right? I don't even work with it that much. Hell, that's why I'm stuttering so much about the service. But the point that I'm making is, as you develop and as you go through these job listings, you're going to be able to identify the specific services that are mandatory to know at a fundamental level. And then you'll also be able to identify the outlier services that may or may not be specific to that business or that vertical, right? But there's only so much prep you can do around those basic services, how to troubleshoot with them, how to build solutions with them, how to build secure, scalable architectures with them. And there's some services that you're going to have to go out of your way to build solutions for so you understand, right? So I'll give you an example, right? Like I had an opportunity to work a federal role where they were specifically looking for somebody who had experience with Red Hat Linux Enterprise and image hardening, specifically with the SYS framework. That's like that's like some three oddly specific things, and it was on Azure, right? I had experience with Red Hat Linux Enterprise, with RHEL, whatever, right? I've had experience with hardening in general for that image, but it wasn't on Azure, and it wasn't in an automated fashion with the pipeline tool that they were using, which was GitHub Actions. You could go and watch this. You could go and look at the architecture breakdown on my LinkedIn right now at the time of me filming it. But prior to the interview, what I did was build that same architecture diagram. I built that out specifically for that interview. So when I got to the interview, I could speak to my experience prior to being exposed to the tools that they were looking for. But now I could also speak to new experience related to what they were specifically looking for in the interview. So they could say, oh, what's your experience with RHEL? Oh, well, I built out an end-to-end pipeline that allowed me to automate the hardening of RHEL images on Azure with Azure Compute Gallery, GitHub Actions, GitHub, Packer, and Bash. So I already literally hit the nail on the head for every single thing they were specifically looking for in that role. And then when they asked me questions about the architecture, why I chose the particular tools and how I would change it, I already had those questions in the bank, right? So there's a certain amount of prep that you should do for baseline cloud skills, cloud services. And there's additional prep that you might want to do based on how specific the role is that they're hiring for, or the specific problem that they're hiring to solve. Right? But as you grow with time and you go through enough opportunities, you'll figure out what roles you may need to do a little bit more prep on and what roles you may not need to prep on at all. Because there's like, I'm not going to lie, there's some interviews I just go into and I'll be like, oh, I forgot I had an interview scheduled. And I just go because I just like know, like after looking at it or talking to the recruiter, I just know like, yeah, I got what they're looking for. But that'll come with time. That'll come with you building out a swath of projects, having a strong portfolio. And as you gain more experience in the space, like real experience in the space, there's less of an investment in time in terms of projects because your day-to-day work will be your projects and you're never going to forget certain things, right? But it's going to be something you're going to have to play by ear. And the less real work experience you have, the more prep you will do. The more you build out your project portfolio, the less prep you will do. Right? But that's how I would consider interview prep. Right? Now, crushing the interview is the next step. Because you got the interview, you did the prep, now it's time to actually like crush it. That is a mouthful. It's 3 words. Crush the interview, but it is a mouthful. Like, one of the first videos I ever made was like, do you think someone's going to give you a 6-figure job if you show up on a blurry camera with a bad microphone and a dirty background? No. You could get away with having a shoddy internet connection if those 3 things are met at the bare minimum, right? Like, no one's going to hire somebody who doesn't present themselves cleanly, clearly, confidently, and in a clean fashion. Like, you want to show up well. You want to show up dressed well. I'm not going to say get a haircut every single time you have an interview. If you have like 4 interviews, you're not going to get a haircut every time, but you want to make sure that you're timely. Sometimes a recruiter will give you a call, say, hey, could you show up 5 minutes before just to do a mic check, audio check, internet check, make sure everything's cool, right? But as you have lots of interviews lined up on your calendar, you want to be a little bit more deliberate on your timeliness and how you show up, like how you actually present yourself. Because that first interaction, especially if it's a remote role, is going to be a big deal. For me showing up with a 4K camera with a very crisp and clear microphone and like what looks to be a studio is going to be a big deal for the first impression. You don't have to do all of those things to have a good first impression, but those things definitely help. It automatically leaves like a strong impression on the interviewer when you have a lot of those things in alignment. I'm not saying go out and buy a 4K webcam. I'm not saying go out and invest $200 or $300 in a microphone. But you want to at least be clear, crisp, and you want to be presented well. And presenting well can mean a lot of different things depending on the business. Like I've had interviews where they say, oh, could you show up in a suit? A remote interview, can you show up in a suit? I've had interviews where they say, oh, just wear a collared shirt. Or, oh, the manager's laid back, like he's probably going to show up in a dirty t-shirt. You're going to have to coordinate with the recruiter, meaning the recruiter's going to have to give you as much information as possible so that you can be successful in the interview. And this, I really probably should have touched on this in regard to like the prep piece, right? The recruiter and you should be in lockstep. Like if it's a really strong recruiting company or a business with a strong recruiting pipeline, a strong hiring process, the recruiter is going to give you as much prep as possible to make you as competitive as a candidate in the pool of candidates that they have. Because let's be real, they probably have like 3 or 4 candidates. They want to get that commission for butts and seats. They want to get that commission for every single hour that you build a client. They want you to get placed because they're going to get paid for it. They should be doing everything in their best interest. If they're a good recruiter at a good company that's motivated well by what they're getting paid, they should be motivated to make sure that every step of the interview process, you know what to expect, you know how to show up, and you know what to talk about or what to frame yourself or your responses to so that you can have the highest opportunity chance to close out on opportunity. Right? So a bit of that prep is going to be working with the recruiter to make that happen. And that all comes into crushing the interview. Now, before I move to this last piece, right, I do want to touch on some other things about crushing the interview as well, too. I probably should have added some more slots here, but like crushing the interview, I would tell you to pause this and go and look at the interviews that I have on YouTube so you can really actually see in real life like how I interview and why I interview a particular way. Stuttering, not a good look. And not a good look in my opinion. Like, I don't think that the highest quality candidates, the highest quality professionals, the highest quality engineers say and a lot. I always advise people to take a pause. Even in this video, I'm sure you've seen me take a pause like a million times, like I'm an awkward person or something, to gather my thoughts, to convey what I want to say properly. You taking those couple seconds to pause makes you seem like a more confident and stronger candidate than someone who's saying and looking off camera to piece their thoughts together. That's something I always tell people to avoid. Also, you do want to show some personality. Like I've gotten to interviews where they've straight up told me, yeah, you seem like a very strong technical fit, but we couldn't get a read on your personality because you were so to the point. That could also lend to my personality, but I want you to be cautious about that as well too. There are opportunities out there where they have a lot of technically qualified candidates, but they're looking for the right personality and culture fit for the team that they already have. I've gotten rejected from interviews. Matter of fact, I have this video posted like somewhere on TikTok or something where the recruiter said, yeah, they felt like you were a strong technical fit, but they felt like you were too locked in. Whatever the hell that means, but I digress. But the point I'm making is there's going to be times where you'll need to show your personality and the quirks of who you are along with being technical. Because ultimately the highest compensated engineers are an intersection of high technical skills and high communication skills. A strong mixture of high IQ and high EQ. And in that, let's say, hour or 30 minutes that you have to meet whoever might be hiring you, you only have so much time to be able to convey that efficiently. I also advise people to get straight to the point with their answers. You want to be able to respond to a question with a short story, an answer behind the story, and a direct answer at that to what they're asking you about. It may not necessarily be that you always have a story for what they're asking you about. You might say, I don't know. But you also want to be able to confidently say, hey, I'm not sure, but based on my experience with X in this adjacent scenario, here's how I would try and deduce a solution. Because there's a lot of times where I'll say, I don't know to a solution. I don't know, but this is what I would try. I think also being comfortable in saying you don't know or there's a limit to your knowledge is also a very, very good thing to be able to display in an interview, because as an engineer, you're not going to know everything. You're going to know what you know, and they're going to trust that you're going to be able to find solutions based on the constraints and tool set that you have. You have to be able to convey that you don't know something, but you have the willingness and the understanding and problem solving ability to figure out an answer when you don't know. That is also something I think everybody should consider. And like I said, like open up another tab, go look at the interviews that I have posted on my page, because that same body language, that same confidence, that same directness, even the small laughs that I have, that comes over time, and it is strategic. I will say it is strategic. You want to emulate something like that. And this also, now we could move to this section, right? Here's the minimum questions that I think people should ask in an interview. I also think that people forget that an interview is both ways. They get so caught up in like the pursuit, the landing of the role, the desire to make something happen, that they forget that interviews are both ways. In the same way that they're vetting you for this opportunity, you're vetting them for the opportunity, especially if you're a competitive candidate. If you've done everything leading up to this map and you have tons of inbound leads, tons of outbound leads as well too, and you're a truly competitive candidate, they better be terrified to lose you on that interview, right? And you need to take that opportunity to get as much information as possible to figure out if they're a good fit for you and if this is a partnership that you could look forward to. So here's the 4 baseline minimum questions I think everybody should ask in their interview in this process. 1, what's the main problem you're hoping to solve with this hire? Remember how I said earlier that certain job titles and certain descriptions don't always align? Like the skill set, the job description, and the job title don't always align. I've literally gotten to interviews that were specifically for Azure Cloud Engineering, and then I get to the interview and they say, actually, we literally just decided today we're hiring an AWS person. That happens. And there's only so many things you can do leading up to that point to counterbalance that. But in the moment where they give you opportunities to ask questions, you need to take advantage of them. Vet them just as much as they're vetting you. These are the 4 minimum questions that you should ask when you're at this stage in the process. 1, what's the main problem you're hoping to solve with this potential hire? Because their answer to that question could be very telling, and it could go against what's in the job listing, and it could go against what you're expecting as well. They could give you a whole bunch of dirty laundry that you would have never found out based on what the recruiter told you and up until this stage in the interview. And you need to stab them in that wound and twist it so you could get as much information as you could possibly leverage. Second thing is, what does the day-to-day of this role actually look like? Because sometimes it's a brand new position and they literally don't know what they're hiring for. They just know that they need somebody with a particular baseline. And sometimes they have a specific detailed flow chart of what the day-to-day looks like. Okay, like at 8 a.m. we have stand up, and then at 12 a.m. we have a sync on whatever projects that you have, and then at the end of the day we tell each other that we're leaving for the end of the day. There's businesses who really operate like that. Like that's a legitimate answer I've gotten from some businesses before. There's nothing wrong with that, but I say this just to be very clear. Like some businesses have a specific day-to-day. Some businesses have a very, let's say, shifty day-to-day. It could be very different. Every week it could be different. This is your opportunity to ascertain that information and vet if that's something that you even want to be a part of. A good question that I ask as well too is, what separates a rock star in this role from an average hire? Because as much as businesses don't want to admit, they're not always hiring the candidate that they want. Everybody can't be a rock star, because it's like saying everybody in the NBA is an all-star. There's stars, there's all-stars, there's superstars. There's levels. In the same way there's levels to everything, there's levels to the IT space and candidates as well too, right? So I always ask, what separates a rock star in this role from an average hire? Because there's certain expectations and certain baselines and certain desires that teams or businesses will have based on what's available to them. There's budget constraints that keep them from getting the candidates that they really want. There's skill set constraints that keep them from getting the person that can actually do the job that they need. And you want to ask this question so you can really see where the panel or the hiring manager's head is in terms of being realistic. Some people want a FANG unicorn that wants to work at a no-name company for less pay. That doesn't mean that they'll get it, but that doesn't mean that they don't have expectations for who they're investing in. Was there, and this question is I think is like a magnum opus question. Like it's probably, if you don't ask any other question out of this list of these baselines, like this is the question that I think everybody should ask. Was there anything in my answers? Was there anything, well, specifically the way that I ask it is, was there anything that I responded with that would make you hesitant to move forward with me for the next stage in this opportunity? You could split it into 2 questions, but that one question, I think, is enough to give you as much information as possible. Like an alteration of that question is something like, was there anything that I responded with earlier that you'd like clarity on that would make you hesitant to move forward with me for this next opportunity? That's a variation that I'll ask as well too. Because like, you may not ever talk to these people again. They may decide, yeah, we're not hiring you and we'll never speak to you again. Like, there's nothing to lose from asking this question and everything to gain. They could tell you, actually, you knocked it out of the park and I don't have any concerns. That's happened to me before. Matter of fact, once again, open up another tab and go look at the interviews I have posted on YouTube. You can watch me ask that question and have them exactly say that. And there's interviews that I've had as well too, where they say, honestly, you're a really strong candidate, but I don't know about your personality, bro. Or they'll go, actually, the way that you answered the first question I asked you and the third question I asked you made me know that you have gaps in these particular areas. And we actually want someone who's stronger in that area. Like I've had rejections where they'll be like, actually, your answers to Kubernetes weren't as detailed as I would have liked. And you also don't come from a networking background. And we're looking for someone who has a strong networking background and Kubernetes and automation. Right? Like the response that you'll get can vary depending on your performance, as well as other factors related to, once again, the main problem the business is hoping to solve for. Right? So if you don't ask them anything else, make sure you ask them this question, because it's going to give you information about the gaps that you can solve to improve as a candidate and as a professional overall. And through this process, this whole map of what you should be doing, this is going to be exceedingly valuable to your improvement in your interview skills and as a professional. Do not be scared to ask this question. Worst case scenario, you'll never see these people again and they tell you sucked at interviewing. And now you know what you suck at, what you can improve, and what you need to do projects on. Like every interview isn't supposed to be a job offer. Even when I have a job, I'll still go and interview for a role that I'm unqualified for just so I can know what gaps I can improve on in a particular area. Right? Always ask this question. There's other questions that I think you should ask as well too. But for the most part, these 4 are very, very solid that will improve your quality of interviewing overall and even give you, maybe put you in a position where you're like, actually, I don't want to work with them. Right? Another good question is, what does your documentation hygiene look like? Like, all I'm saying is, me personally, if a business says, yeah, we're bad at documentation, I'm raising both of my fucking eyebrows. I'm raising both of my eyebrows. I'm raising both of my eyebrows. I'm not going to do it on camera, but I'm just going to be like, okay, so I'm probably going to walk into a mismanaged environment that nobody knows anything about. But at least you know what you're walking into because you ask a question like that. Another good question is, how have you directly or indirectly helped someone on your team skill up? Like, are you just hiring people and putting them in a corner and then having them figure out everything else? It really depends. But these are some good questions that are good to ask. Like I said, opening up another tab and go and look at the interviews that I have asking these exact questions so you can see the type of responses that you can get. And like, let's say, like, you move through this process and you get an offer, right? The main thing that I want people to understand with getting job offers is that, one, you don't get paid what you're worth. You get paid what you negotiate for. Negotiation can be a very nuanced thing for people in the space. Like, there's certain industries or certain verticals where they have a set budget that they literally cannot go past. There's certain opportunities where they have a discretionary budget to break the salary band that they potentially said they could give you in the beginning. Like, I've had opportunities where the salary band was from X to X, and then I get to the actual interview and the hiring manager says, yeah, we have an additional 20 grand. I've had opportunities where they say, yeah, we literally are already paying you beyond our max and we can't give you any more money. And I've had interviews where before I even get to the interview, the recruiter will say, this is the max. Are you cool with that? Because they're literally not giving you any more money. We don't care how good of a candidate you are. It can be very nuanced, but the best way or the best set of pillars that I think everybody should consider with negotiation is you want to make sure that you're at least getting what the market is average for in your state, location, and for the years of experience that you have. That is like a lot of variables. That's a lot of variables. I know it is, right? But an easy way for you to have some type of baseline associated with what you should consider is that you want to have inbound leads and outbound leads going in frequently, because the market will tell you what you're worth. Based on the amount of leads or people emailing you and calling you every day and saying, hey, we'll pay you this much to interview for this opportunity, that's going to be your, let's say, lever or indicator for what you're probably actually worth on the market. And like there's outliers. There's people who live in New York or San Francisco that have the opportunity to work at these FANG companies, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, the influx of people reaching out to you to give you an opportunity will be the best indicator of what you're probably actually worth on the market. You won't be able to tell how much you're actually worth on the market unless you have went through this process and you're actually getting inbound leads. That's one thing I will say. And then also, as far as negotiating for more money specifically, I think there's a misconception that people think that negotiation starts when the contract is cut. That's not true. Prior to you even getting to the stage where they offer you the money, they offer you the job, the value that you're able to inadvertently display leading up to that is going to be a heavy indicator on whether or not they'll be able to offer you more money. Before they even meet you, before they even get to that offer round, if they have undeniable evidence of you being able to solve their business problem, they already know, like, dang, we really got to get this guy in. Did he say what his range was? Okay. Like the pre-validation, everything leading up to this point is designed for them to have a type of pressure associated with you coming through their pipeline. Like from a hiring manager's perspective, and believe me, hiring managers check your LinkedIn, especially if it's a prominent name brand company. They check your LinkedIn. They check out what you have. They check out what you've added to the space, your name, your brand, right? If prior to you getting to the offer stages, they've already consumed tons of content related to your skill set, who you are, the value you can add to a business, and they go, wow, this guy's actually a very high quality candidate, the likelihood of them wanting to do things to keep you interested in the opportunity or accepting the opportunity is going to be higher. Everything that I have in this map is like for a specific reason, and it's leading up to this point of you signing and accepting something that you want to sign. You want to make sure that you're giving off as much perceived value as humanly possible leading up to this point, because it's only going to give you more leverage to negotiate. And the ultimate way to have more leverage is to have another offer in hand. How do you get multiple offers on the table at one time? Multiple inbound leads at one time, multiple interviews throughout the week. How do you get multiple interviews? Once again, multiple inbound leads and outbound leads. How do you cultivate those inbound and outbound leads? A very strong resume and job hunting profiles and content giving undeniable proof that you can solve business problems. This combination of these things is what's really going to give you that additional, let's say, unseen leverage for you negotiating for that income that you're looking for. Right? But you don't get paid what you're worth. You get paid what you're negotiating for. So keep that in mind. And don't be so caught up in like just base income either. Like a base salary is great, but there's other forms of income you want to consider. Stock, days off, a training stipend, gym time, right? Like there's other things in that offer letter that you might want to ask the recruiter about, that you might want to ask for in general. They don't necessarily equate to a legitimate dollar value, but they equate to value. All I'm saying is if I got an additional 7 days off, that's a pretty big amount of value in my opinion. And an additional week, everybody would want that, right? But these are things that you also want to consider when you're going through that negotiation process as well. But I do think for you to be in the best position ever is for you to have multiple offers on the table. For you to literally have zero care in the world what they put in front of you because you already have something else in your left hand is probably the biggest thing. And for you to put yourself in a position like that, you have to be getting leads. How do you get leads? Strong, optimized job hunting profiles. How do you get a strong, optimized job hunting profile? It starts with a resume. How do you build a strong resume? It starts with the skills, right? These things all cascade up until this one point. And ultimately, I mean, this is the process that I go through. This is the process that I go through. And you just rinse and repeat it. And it becomes, let's say, a little bit easier. Easy is relative, I think. But as you develop throughout your career and you have a strong foundation of skills and things that you know that you're good at, things that you know that you are a potential specialist in, it becomes easier to convey value, to show or give off perceived value, to interview well. And it's less sweat, less anxiety the more you go through this process. Even when I have a job, I still put myself through this exact same process when I have a job so that I don't lose the muscle memory of going through all of these steps. The worst thing you could do is be somebody who's worked at a position for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 30 years, and have never interviewed or went through a job hunting methodology or process. Because if you get fired, you're now the person who's relying on networking connections or someone else to be able to feed your family. This process works, and I think it should be the default process if someone had to look for a job. I think personally that networking should be one of your later stage options because it can be unreliable, and you should be able to cultivate job offers and opportunities in this space on your own, like from the muscle, from who you are and the value you can add to the space, not networking and tapping people on the shoulder when you need them. High level, this is not even high level. I believe I went into like great detail with all of this on what you should be doing to get hired as a cloud engineer. This is the exact process I think everybody should do. And yes, this can seem like a long, high effort process. Treating the job hunt like a full-time job is high effort. 20 applications a day, 30 applications a day, high effort. Deliberate outreach to the roles and the people that you want to connect with for the job you're looking for, high effort. But the math makes sense. Like if you're doing this properly, you want to get like a 5% callback rate on your outbound searching. So if I'm looking for a role and I put in 1,000 applications, roughly I should get a 5% callback rate for all of the outbound applications that I do. And of that 5% that you get back, right, let's just keep it small, like 100. You get 5 calls back. Of those 5 calls back that you got, you should be able to close at least 2 offers. And then out of those 2 offers, one of them should be one that you actually want. If you're doing everything properly, that's the type of numbers that display somebody who is competitive from an outbound perspective. These are the numbers, or this is the math that I hold myself to in terms of standards without considering any inbound leads. Like if I didn't have as strong of a presence on LinkedIn, or if I didn't have content on LinkedIn, those are the numbers and that's the math that I would use to calculate whether or not I'm being competitive in the space. And that's the math that I think everybody should relatively hold themselves against to really validate whether or not they're being competitive for what they're looking for in the cloud engineering space. Right? And I'm not going to hold you. Like, yeah, I mapped out this whole process because I wanted to make sure that this is what I think everybody should be doing. And everyone is not going to do it. Everyone is not going to do it. I know that for a fact. Everyone's not going to do it. But the people that do it are the people who are going to get results. They're the people who are going to get hired. They're the people who are actually signing the 6-figure roles, the cloud engineering roles, whatever, right? This same process generally should work for cybersecurity roles as well, networking roles as well. It's the same process. The skill set is different, but the job hunting methodology and process is the same, right? But more or less you rinse and repeat, right? So people in my community have went through this exact same process and have gotten hired, right? Like I said, I keep saying, oh, go look at my YouTube channel. Like there's people, and I posted like this guy, $120,000 salary doing this exact same process. This guy, $180,000 doing the exact same process, $152,000, $200,000. The point that I'm making is this process works for me and it works for other people. And I know that the vast majority of people won't go through an actual structured process like that, but it does. It does work, right? But a lot of people aren't going to do this process. And also a lot of people probably haven't made it to the end of this video. But if you did, man, it would just mean a lot if you just said that this helped. So I know it landed with at least one person. Everyone's not going to sit through a 3-hour zero to cloud engineering course, especially considering it's not like technical. Anybody could teach you how to be technical. Anybody could teach you how to be technical. Everyone can't teach you a structured job hunting process and methodology to get hired in today's market. But the people who have a job and the people who could get job offers and the people who could actually interview, they can show you how to do that. But if this helps you, definitely comment this help down below in the video so I could know that it hit with at least one person. And then, you know, I'll use that to make some more breakdown videos. Like that motivation hits when you know like you're actually impacting people with your content. That's also like part of the reason why I make content. Like I see other creators making content and doing so on and so forth. And I was like, man, I could do that. And I could do it well. Like I have a lot of opinions, a lot of experience and value that I think I could add to the space. And personally, it would mean a lot to know that this like helps somebody. But if you ever ask Charles, you ever ask Cloud Tech Exec, what should I do to get into cloud? This is exactly step by step, specifically what I think you should be doing to get into cloud. So hopefully this landed for you. Hopefully this gives you some guidance. Hopefully you know where you are in this map. Actually, I'm gonna make sure that this map is in the description of the video so you can understand like visually where you are potentially. Because some people are at the very beginning, some people are somewhere in the middle, some people are just like not even started. But I'll attach this. Let me know if this helped you. Hopefully this hit. And as always, see you in the next one.